and we did not auto rotate. We were falling out of the sky uncontrollably,
Wow.
spinning. And the spin just got faster and faster and faster to the point where I could no longer make out the visual. And I was just trying to, just trying to be just, I mean, what was I going to do, brother? I was just hanging on, right? I just had to, I knew it was going to hurt. I knew it was going to be a ride. I just didn't know how I
Mhm.
was going to end up. And then I just remember the initial impact. And then I remember the impact and then bouncing and hitting the ground again and bouncing and hitting the ground again. And then next thing you know, we're just flipping end over end, end over end, end over end until we finally just came to a complete stop.
Welcome to the Calm and the Chaos podcast, where we discuss untold heroic experiences and dive into the mindset of the Navy's elite rescue swimmers. Hosted by former U.S. Navy Aviation Rescue Swimmer, Mount Everest solo summiteer, and best-selling author Brian Dickinson.
Hey everyone, it's Brian Dickinson. If you're enjoying these stories, please take a second to like, subscribe, and share the podcast. It helps more people find these conversations, and it keeps the mission alive. And if you want early access to new episodes and to support what we're building, consider becoming a Spotify paid subscriber. Your support means everything. Now let's jump in so others may live. All right, Jay Shropshire, 23 years of service, retired senior chief. I I'm so pumped to have you on the show. We go back, I mean, it's been what, 32
30
years,
plus
maybe
years,
coming
man.
on.
Yep.
It's
hmm
nuts. It's
Yeah.
so good to see you. You look great,
Yeah.
man.
Same, man. Same to you, brother. I know. Still the Brian I remember, man. We're just a little bit more gray. That's all.
Yeah, a little more wrinkled and definitely a lot more broken.
That for sure.
Wow. Okay. Well, yeah, let's go back. Like, I don't, you grew up in Florida, right?
Yes and no, Brian. You do remember a lot about me, as I'm glad you still do. But I am originally born and raised in Houston, Texas, man. So I'm a Texan
What?
by
Didn't know
birth,
that.
and then my mother married an Air Force man. I wouldn't call him a gentleman because I didn't like him, and he didn't like me. Uh, that was probably, I think I was probably 10, somewhere around there, plus or minus. And then
Hmm.
that took us to Florida because he was stationed in Florida, the
Okay.
Panhandle. And then the rest is history from there, man. I finished the rest of my life there, and that's where I joined the military, obviously. And then so yeah, so kind of both. I grew up. I recall I call Florida my home, man. So it's kind of a but I'm a Texan at heart.
Okay.
Yeah.
As you got older, what do you still feel Florida is your home, or do you kind of feel that draw of Texas?
Probably more so Florida because the years that I can recall, a lot of those fun years, those very important years of you growing up were primarily in Florida. And that was
Hmm.
just, sports. Obviously, so I joined the military and left there and then never left Florida, man. Even after all our training was right there in Florida, and then
Yeah, no kidding.
I got
Yeah.
stationed right there in Florida, and you went to the West Coast. So yeah,
So,
I would probably call Florida my home, man. Yes, sir.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I noticed you have like a Texas flag on your
Yeah, yeah. Well,
little Lone Star going on there.
I'll never
It's
let it go.
interesting. We were talking offline. So Chad Robigeau and Marcus Luttrell, they're right there in Houston as well. I was down there on both their shows. Because I know
Awesome.
we can talk about your MMA recent battle this year as we
Yeah.
go on, but that's what spurred that
Yeah.
up. But let's stay chronological here.
Yes,
So
sir.
you and Scotty B, you guys were in high school together and then joined
Yeah,
together?
man. Yeah. I can make this interview as long as you want it to be, man, but I'll give you the Cliff Notes
You
version
can edit it out too.
behind Scotty and myself. Scotty was one of the first people that I'd met when we'd moved to Florida. We lived on the base, on Eglin Air Force Base in the Panhandle, of Florida, and we lived in this trailer court on the beach. That sounds kind of high. That's just for people that had money, Brian.
Mhm.
Living in a trailer court on a beach in Florida.
It sounds awesome.
That's just for the people that had money. But in any event, jokingly aside, Scott was one of the first, and he was my age. We were in the same grade, went to the same school,
Mhm.
and that was it, man. We went through all of junior high together. and then all of high school. And then when we were all making plans to join the military, or whatever, college, whatever the case may be, I joined the military. I just went rogue. I didn't tell anybody that I was doing it. I did it on my own. We all thought we were going to go to school and play football or whatever the case may be, and I went rogue and didn't tell anyone. I didn't even tell them. I didn't even tell Scott. He was my best friend. I went and joined the military, came back, had my mom sign the paperwork because I was 17. And of course, she cried, didn't want me to go, tried talking me out of it. But I said, this is what I wanted to do. And she said, okay. And then that was it, man. I went back, and everyone was like, well, Jay, you haven't, or Jerome, they know me as Jerome, you haven't
Mhm.
done any of filled any applications for college, blah, blah, what are you going to do? I know you took the SATs, ACTs. I'm like, yeah, I'm done with that. I already have a plan. I'm like, well, what are you going to do? And I'm like, I'm joining the Navy. They're like, joining? I'm like, no, let me correct. I've already joined the Navy. They're like, what? And I'm like, yeah, I've already gone up to Mets and done my stuff
Oh,
and
wow.
given my oath, and
Okay. Well,
and then
let's pause right there because that's a major commitment and one that you kept secret. Like what was that driving force and like why keep it secret?
well, you'd have to know probably a lot about my background growing up, Brian, to get to really down to the brass tacks of that question. Um, but as a whole, I'm not going to say it was taboo or anything to join the military because all my friends, all of them, Scotty Best included, we had a little small tight circle of friends in which Scott was in that circle, that clique of ours.
Hmm.
But all our friends in that circle were all military brats. I
Hmm.
told you I grew up on Eglin Air Force Base, so all my friends were military people,
Yeah.
or their parents were in the military, and a lot of them got out. And when they got out, they moved off base, moved right outside the town, right outside the back gate of Eglin Air Force Base, and which is still attached in that little small town called Valparaiso, Niceville. And so we all stayed connected very much. The reason why I'm telling you that is not necessarily the answer to your question because it doesn't. It's just if you knew how we grew up, and let me just say, I guess in life we always, we find we gravitate towards people that are kind of like-minded, and
Hmm.
like us. And looking back, that was my circle of friends. We
Yeah.
all grew up in broken homes. All those families at the time, my family included, Scott's family, my buddy Carlos, we called him Tito, his family, my buddy Roger, and everyone else. We all lived together, went to school together, all broken families.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get into that because that's just
Yeah, that's
that's just
profound.
trauma in my past, but I've moved past it. But since then, but my point is, we all knew from which we spoke. We all
Hmm.
walked somewhat in the same kind of shoes, and there was a lot of resentment for the military with these guys I grew up with because of the hard times, parents being gone all the time, missing a lot of these things, and
Hmm.
and these parents, these broken marriages at that time. Of course, I had to live it with Scott, I had to live it with Tito, I had to live with everybody else. While living through my own with my mom and my stepfather. They
Yeah.
were on and off, on and off, on and off, and it created this stigma that was very painful for myself and everyone else that I'm speaking of which. So they're like the military was just not an option,
Hmm.
and it wasn't a popular one at that because of those scars. And I just went rogue, man. I just went rogue, and it's not that I didn't have any other options. I just come from a long lineage of military, and I felt just the need to go.
Yeah.
And I felt like that was the quickest way out of that town. And I wanted to serve my country, and I wanted to go do some cool stuff. And so I just did it on my own, man, and kept it a secret. And well, the funny thing about it is, because obviously Scotty, so Scotty ended up joining. Well, that entire
Hmm.
crew joined after I
Oh.
told them that I went and joined. Scott was
You're a
like, "What?"
trendsetter.
Yeah, Scott was like, "What?" And I'm like, "Yeah, man. Hey, they did mention something about this buddy program. You can go. We'll go together." And so he went. He went and he joined. Boom. Scott was quick. He was a no-brainer for Scotty. He just went, joined. We went in together. Same boot camp, same everything.
Yeah, I
Obviously,
remember.
Scotty. And then all the rest of that buddies in that group I'm talking about all did it too. And they all did their turn. They all did their tours. One, I think, re-enlisted a couple times, and they all got out. And you know those stories. Well, he knows Scotty's story.
Hmm.
But all the rest of those guys I mentioned all got out. I was the only one that went through and retired from beginning
Yeah.
to end. So
Well, I tell you what. whatever driving force that is, and we can talk about that as we get through, go on or even offline.
Right.
The the US and the military and everyone you interact with
Right.
are so grateful, and you've been such a gift, I know, in my
Mhm.
life and so many people into this
Yeah.
country. So sometimes, yeah, it takes that, well, trauma bonding, because you're amongst those individuals. You went rogue, and I mean, look at the impact you had just from getting out of that environment to
Yeah.
do better. And I
Right.
think a lot of us got into, specifically our job,
Yeah.
we come from similar, we all have our victim stories, and none of us want to camp in it. We just want
Sure.
to do better. We want to help
Right.
others break
Yeah.
that cycle. And I feel like you've really done that.
Yeah, man, for sure, dude. It was just and I don't have any regrets, dude. I would do it all over again. Granted, my career, I have nothing negative to say about the Navy, Brian. The Navy is just like anything. It was a job. I'm going to get out of it what I put into it. I'm going to reap my rewards, reap my return. Whatever I put in, I'll get out, and hopefully you'll yield a good result, And so the military was good to me, man. Took care of me. It provided for me. I needed a lot of structure at the time. I was young. I was angry a lot at the world. My parents broke, growing up like I told you, like I grew up. And I was
Hmm.
like, yeah, I'm done with this, man. I'm breaking the cycle, like you said. And I had made that decision young. I
Yeah.
just didn't want to grow up in that town. I didn't want to be there anymore. I didn't want to be. I just wanted to leave, and that was it. So joined the Navy, and that was it, man.
So you signed up when you were 17, but
Yes.
you didn't actually go in for like another year?
I went in, so I joined about midway through my senior year of high school. I was 17. And I joined, went up to MEPS, did all that stuff, I'm sure you can recall, and
Hmm.
then finished my high school year, graduated, that summer of 92, and I left February 93. So
Yeah,
I'd already
same,
turned 18.
Orlando. We
Yep.
weren't in the same boot camp, but I know we were holding bricks above our head and dive mo and
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. It was just a
oh.
little different in Club Med in Orlando, buddy.
Yeah, that's the good life.
Yeah,
Well, cool. So we obviously went through that. You went to aircrew. We were in different aircrew schools as well, but at the same time,
yeah.
what was your experience with aircrew? Because Scotty B
Aircrew,
was in mine, I think.
say again.
I think Scotty B might have been in my aircrew.
Um, well,
Or was he in yours?
Brian,
I'll have
I
to
don't
look at
remember, man.
pictures.
Friday when I was sifting through pictures of then, I have pictures of all of us together.
Oh, maybe we were
I know
together.
we all ended up in the same SAR school class.
Yeah.
Um, I have that picture. I know you have that picture as well. Aircrew, Scott was in my aircrew class.
Okay. Maybe we were together. Or maybe he
Um,
wasn't in mine. I don't know.
yeah.
Memory's the first thing to go. That and
Now,
the
yeah, yeah. Now, who wasn't in my or correction, who wasn't in my aircrew class was Brett Shopson, Smith, Christopher Smith. We called him Smitty.
hmm
Um, Jeff Still was in my class,
hmm
and I'm pretty sure Scott was too. Derek Isham. I know you know Isham.
hmm
Do you remember him?
Yeah,
Dude?
we were roommates.
Okay, yeah. He was in my class. I'm pretty sure. He was in my class because I have pictures of him and all of us standing outside the steps of aircrew school when we got our flight suits getting ready to leave for land survival. I
Mm,
have that picture. A lot of us are in there. I think Brent Perkins was in that picture too, and a lot
nice.
of other guys. But yeah,
Good
long time
crowd.
ago, man. So aircrew school, to answer your question, I mean, it was fun. It was fun. It was Pensacola, man. We're getting the basic introduction to aviation tutelage that we needed to move on in training.
Yeah.
Of course, I didn't know anything. I didn't know anything, Brian. I didn't know jack.
None of
All
us
I knew
did.
is all I had focus was I know I'm going to be a rescue swimmer. I know I will get there. So I have to get all these preliminary things. They're
Hmm.
just in the way. These are just things that I have to accomplish to get to the ultimate goal, right? And so and I would say mine, but I think for a few of us at the time, the only person that we had in our class that was a little bit of a sounding board that knew a little bit more about the military than what we did was again Derek Isham. Why? Because his older brother,
Darren.
Ian,
Darren.
or Darren, yeah, Darren was a team guy. And so
Yep.
he was already in the Navy, already in the SEAL teams, stationed out of California. And Derek was, of course, yeah, I want to go to the teams. We want to go to the teams. And you
Hmm.
remember how we all joined all at the same time? They were giving us a bonus to join. There was a shortage of rescue swimmers in the Navy. Hey, join the Navy
Yeah.
the
Got,
rescue
got a
swimmer
thousand
program.
bucks.
What's that?
Got a
Yeah,
thousand bucks.
yeah,
Now it's like 30,000 or something.
yeah, you get a sign-on bonus. We'll promote you to E4, and then everyone will have an opportunity at that time to volunteer to go be a SEAL. Because that's what
Yep.
I joined the Navy to do. If you want to go back a little bit, I don't like talking about that too much because it never came to fruition for me.
Yeah.
That's a whole conversation we can
I
probably
think that was
have.
almost our whole class, though.
Yeah.
We were all in
And
that same.
exactly. And so, but in any event, Derek was the sounding board. Derek was like, "Hey man, these are just preliminary, we have to get through this." And I didn't know anything about a rate. I thought rate equaled rank. And that's how uneducated
Mhm.
I was at the time. I thought they were the synonymous. And Derek was like, "Nah, man, we're gonna be AWs." And I'm like, AWs? And he goes, "Yeah, no." He goes, "No, you want to be an AW. You don't want to be anything else. You don't want to be a black shoe." I remember that was his term. You don't want to be a black shoe. You don't want to be a black shoe. And so he was my source of, I guess, intel at the time. I'm like, all right,
Nice.
so
Shout out to
so
Derek.
yeah, what's that? Yeah, I was like, so we're gonna be AWs. And I'm like, what does that mean? And he goes, it's just you're gonna be rescue swimmers. You're gonna be, we're gonna fly in helos and do some anti-submarine warfare stuff. But not to worry. We'll do our time and we'll get out and we can all go to where we wanted to, man. And which was go to the teams. And so he was kind of like my source of info really at the time. And Derek and I became good friends and but air crew school, like I said, was just it was just a
Stepping
a speed
stone.
bump. It's just a speed bump,
Yeah,
just a point in time. We just needed to get through that to get to SAR school, and then
totally.
obviously we know what happened to SAR school. But air crew school is fun. I mean, not California, but it's Florida during the summertime.
Yeah, black flag condition. What
That's
was
right.
what's your biggest memory of aircrew school?
I would probably say the biggest memory was probably. I mean, if I had to, right now, you ask the question, the first thing that comes to my mind was land survival. I
Hmm.
enjoyed that part, but now that I'm dissecting your question a little more, I would say just
In
those
real time.
initial introductions to some of that initial physiology training that we had to do, like the
Hmm.
spin and puke, right? We had to
Hmm.
get in
Decompression chamber.
the parachute and jump off the platform and straighten it back up and land and get yourself out of it and all that kind of
Ah,
stuff and overwater survival and the pools. And I think that's what I remember the most. But what I like you said when you answered the question, I just thought of land survival, man, because that was fun because you got to apply what stuff that they kind of taught you, and we were just left to our own devices out there in the woods on the reservation in Eglin Air Force Base, so
yeah. They don't do
that
that anymore.
no
They
no, so
they
that was
pulled the
kind of
land
cool.
survival out. I was out there on my 19th birthday, and I remember it's my birthday, and I didn't tell anyone because you tell
Yeah,
anyone
sure,
it's your
sure, sure.
birthday, you're gonna get
Yeah, right,
your
right,
ass
right.
kicked.
Yeah.
So that was memorable. I think mine was because that was the first time we got hoisted up in a helicopter.
Yeah.
Remember the Dolphin came out, the
Oh
Coast
yeah.
Guard.
Yeah.
That's if I had to think back, like the Helo Dunker is always an easy go-to.
Yeah.
That was a lot of fun, but yeah, just getting hoisted up and just that
Yeah.
experience was like,
That's right. That's right. We did our initial, see what do we call it? Our initial 95, and I just pulled that acronym out of my sphincter, but I know that's the designation of it. We got our first initial 95 designation or training at aircrew school. You are right. I remember that. And it was just a big enlarged 55-gallon drum type device we all got in strapped up, and then they just drop you and you got it done. So yeah, you're right. I do remember that initial training. Uh, we didn't have to ride the jet. Do we have to ride the jet?
no,
Why do I
no,
think why do I think that we had to ride that one? They put us
I don't
because
know.
in aircrew school, we didn't know which platform we were going to, or did we?
Cor
I don't think we knew at the time because there was there. So I think they had to give us initial training because well, I can recall we may have known because of course there were us, the SAR guys. You remember, right? The SAR guys,
yeah,
but we were also in class with the guys that weren't going.
S3,
Yeah,
P3, yeah,
Marines,
so,
P3 guys, and so everyone we had to do it all. They didn't specialize at training. So, oh, you're SAR guys, and you're only going to do the helo dunk, or oh, you guys are or P3 guys, and you guys are going to do the fuselage. From what I can recall, and I could be wrong, Brian, but I think if I remember correctly, we had to do pretty much all of them. I have a
Hmm.
very vivid memory of getting in the small jet cockpit up over the pool, getting myself in there, giving them the thumbs up, and they ram it into the water and flip it upside down, and you just had to get
Yeah,
out.
yeah. Officer and a gentleman.
Yeah, exactly. That,
Okay. Yeah, maybe. I mean,
yeah,
again,
I remember doing
first
that
thing to
one.
go is the mind, the back,
Yeah,
the knees.
that's it, brother. Of course. Yeah.
Well, if
No, good
someone
times,
can weigh
man.
in on comments on that.
Yeah,
Part of our good group. Okay, so
that's it.
we march over to SAR school, day one. What's going through your head?
Well, I think fear, right? I mean, that was probably going through all of our head because even though we were going through school at aircrew school, the whole time we're having to complete each and every task, get our grades so we can move on through training. But the whole time, even the instructors were even on us, or at
Hmm.
least my memory. Yours might be different, but my memory was there was always information being put out to the class. And then there was the additional tidbits of information, which were more like coming across like warnings to you SAR guys. You SAR
Hmm.
guys, when you're done, you're going to have to march down same day and check in at SAR school. And so they were always like, and that's when your life's going to change, and it was just kind of like one of those. So like, of
Hmm.
course, you can recall, man, we didn't do anything. At least I didn't because I was underage. So I couldn't drink when I was in Pensacola, but I grew up there anyway, so it really didn't matter. But,
Yeah.
I was just shining shoes, ironing
Oh
creases,
my
and,
gosh. We
you
could
know,
spend a podcast on your shoes alone, dude.
yeah,
I
dude,
still
shoes.
remember, like, you had
Yeah,
to put
shoes.
sunglasses on and like another pair on top of your sunglasses. They were so bright and
Yeah.
glassy.
Yeah. No, I would exchange. I would exchange. I just remember sitting in my rooms, man. Sitting in my room there at Aircrew School across from AOCS there in Pensacola, just shining shoes, studying, calling out stuff, before we got to SAR school. But we all knew we were going there. The moment you
Mhm.
graduated, we all knew we were going to SAR school. So it was like, yeah, your uniform's never going to go, it's never going to be good enough. Your shoes are never
Mhm.
going to be shiny enough. They're going to scuff them up on you the day, it was just like one of those things. So I just knew I was trying to just mentally prepare myself for what we were going to experience. And I remember that. I remember vividly marching over there that day one. I had our orders, whatever, in our left hand, so we could still render salute with the right if we needed to. And we marched over there, and that was it, man. That was the beginning. I think it was fear, but maybe a little bit more just apprehension, like the
Mhm.
fear of the unknown, what's going to happen. I think we all knew we were going to get our butts kicked to some degree. It was just to what degree, and they were right. They're like, yeah, your uniform looked like crap. Uh,
Mhm.
and that might have passed at air crew school, but that's not passing muster here. And yeah, I think that's what I remember. And then of course, just that time that we kind of started off offline, you and I talking about it was, why are you here? They're Airman Apprentice Shropshire. Why are you here? And of course, they didn't ask me that, but I remember they're going through and asking everybody. Hell, they might even ask you. I don't remember, but I think that's my memory. And then after that, it was just, I mean, it was a quick school, so you either got on board or you got left behind. And so we
Yeah.
were having to be forced fed. I still have that memory. I'll never forget it. I know you won't either, because the way that we were taught information on how to retain information was based purely off of one thing and one thing only, and that was pain. Pain and motivation. So if you can't remember it, I'll make you remember it. And it's either via the lean and rest position or flutter kicks for days. And so
Mhm.
it's like that's just how, so it's like, well, now in today's in the society that we live in now, Brian is like, oh, you can't do that. There's different ways. People learn different ways now. You have different learning styles. You
Mhm.
can't be so abrasive, and you have to accommodate everyone. I mean, those rules didn't apply when you and I were going to school, man. You
Nope.
got it or you didn't get it. I mean, that's the
Yeah.
bottom line. And I think it was designed like that way for a reason, to trim low hanging fruit, get rid of the people that just couldn't hack it, and everyone else was fire hose, man, just straight up fire hose of information. And we were learning the moment we got there until the day we graduated. We were just
Well, you think
force fed
about
information.
the job, how what it entails, it aligned to that training
Mm-hmm.
because when you're going out, you're doing a rescue, no matter what the situation,
Yep.
you're assessing that situation when you're heading out based on misinformation, you're getting in there, anything, can happen in those
Right.
moments. It's
Right.
not like, hold on, let's take a time out.
Yep.
It's
No, no, you're right. Yep. No, that was for sure. That was for sure. And then I use, and the training timeout, even though we got briefed on it every day before training timeout, DOR policy, it was there are no training timeouts in the pool. You cannot grab the pool edge when you're tired rescuing somebody in the ocean. I just remember that. I'll never forget it
Same.
because it was like it was never going to happen. And I'm sure in our classes, which class were you? Were you B team, C team, or A
I
team?
I was well, you were B, right?
I was B
So
team.
I
So we were
started
B's.
with B, then I had to take emergency leave. My grandpa shot himself. So
Okay.
then I came back and rolled into C and then graduated with C.
And then who was in your class? I think you had Brett and those guys in your class, didn't you?
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. And Ice rolled
Yep.
back, Matt
Yeah.
Laughlin. Um, I don't
Yeah.
know. I got a picture
Yeah.
somewhere.
Yeah. Because my team, or correct, yeah, my team, it was me and Jeff Still. Uh, we
Perky.
moved through on B team, and then I think we were just sitting around waiting for you guys to finish so that we can all do SAR jumps together. And that's when we all kind of came back together. But
Mm.
yeah,
Yep.
man,
And then back
those
together
were
in Millington.
yep. And then back to Millington, and then that was when the SAR Mafia. We first learned of the SAR Mafia cornering.
That's right.
That's right, buddy. I'll never forget those days. I still talk about them, man. I still do all the time. I still talk about those days. They're a lot of fun, man. A lot of fun.
Oh man.
Yeah,
Yeah, young and dumb and fun.
and that's it.
Okay, well we can wrap on rescue swimmer school. So what was the so a major takeaway for you was hammer it through.
Mhm.
But what was the most difficult, the most challenging part of SAR school?
The challenging part for me, obviously, man, I was young, man. I was 19 years old, man, and so or 18 rather. I was 18. Of course, we all knew that it was going to be physical, but we were already mentally prepared for that anyway, because we were not to brag, but we were above average specimen, which is why we were going to
Hmm.
SAR school in the first place. So I don't think I can say this now, but it may not have been true then. I don't think I had anything to prove at the time, but now talking about it with you, reflecting on it, maybe I did. Maybe I did have a little chip on my shoulder about things that you and I had already talked about, me growing up in my life and stepfather and this and that and broken
Hmm.
home. And maybe just had a lot to prove, but at the time, I knew it was going to be physical. Okay, you can't kill me. There's only so many push-ups you can make me do. There's only so many floater kicks. I know it'll end at some point. I just have to just make it through to the next evolution. So I don't think I was ever really worried about the physical aspect of it, but I do remember at times, which I'm sure you can recall as well, there were times where I had to dig deep for some internal. I had to find something deeper in me to keep going. I can recall on numerous occasions just being so tired and exhausted, primarily when we were training to do multis, because of course we were
Hmm.
always training to do multis up to that final test. And there were times I can recall, I mean, I had not ever been tested physically like that before.
Yeah.
Um, and of course, when you're 18, you're like, we're invincible, man. We're invincible. It's just,
Okay, we still are.
yeah, yeah. I would agree, brother. I would agree. But what did they say? And I know you can finish this statement, but they would always say, pain is weakness leaving the body. And I
Yep.
still say that to this day, but I remember they just boasted, pain is weakness leaving the body, and I just remember having to just really grasp that concept and just power through it.
Yeah.
And like you said, it was all for a reason. There was method behind their madness. They wanted to make sure who was going to be able to hack it. In my opinion, Brian, it wasn't so much physical. It was, I mean, because we're all young, man. We're all young. Physical fitness shouldn't have necessarily really been a part of it, although it was in
Hmm.
terms of you and I, what we had to accomplish at the time. It
Yep.
was coming together as a team, as a class, but yet there were still individual tasks we all had to pass, or you'd lose your team. And um, can you push through the pain and isolate it? Compartmentalize is what we're taught, right? Compartmentalize the pain, push it aside, and think of the bigger picture. You're saving somebody else that needs you, right? So put
Hmm.
yourself aside for the moment, suck it up, finish the task at hand so we can move forward. And those are my vivid memories of SAR school is,
Yeah.
two of them that I can recall right now that I'll never, ever, ever forget was parachute disentanglement, where we were all on the pool together, holding this pool, holding this parachute. And of course, instructors are never satisfied. No matter how high you got the parachute out of the water, but we're all around the circumference of the parachute, treading with those jet
Hmm.
fins, holding this parachute up above the water, and it was just never good enough, man. Just getting yelled at, yelled at, yelled at, and then they bring it down, and someone had to go get in the middle of it and get all tangled
Hmm.
up in it, and then have to find yourself getting out of it, And I could
Hmm.
still do it right now if I had to do it. That was
Yeah.
probably one of the most exhausting times that I can recall in SAR school. I was gassed, man, gassed. And I thought there was a moment next to me that I saw this, and it may not have been fear. It was just pure exhaustion, pure shock on Derek Isham's face. He was right next to me, right next to me. And I'm looking at him and he's looking at me. And we were just like, this sucks. This
Yeah, it
sucks
does.
bad, And it was like, man, can I lean on you? Because I am gassed. And he's doing the same thing. And I just remember he and I kind of like helping each other out because I felt like I just did not have any more gas in the tank to stay afloat. And I'm looking at him, and he's the same way. And Brian, I remember, man, seeing his face like we're just like this, is trying to stay up out of the water, and the water's just right here. And
Yeah.
I'm helping him, and he's helping me. And it was, dude, that's probably one of the most intense times that I can recall. And granted, these team guys and all, they're like, ah, man, that's just you're just holding a parachute. Yeah, but at the time, that sucked, man. That sucked.
Yeah.
That
And
sucked.
you remember that's later in the day. Like we
Yeah,
already, sat at push-up position in the sand for an hour and
yeah,
did flutter
right,
kicks for an hour, all this other I mean, you're already jello. You get
yeah,
in the water and, it's that equalizer. What's
yeah,
interesting is in SAR school, I mean, we're one of the unique, you know, um, I guess special ops groups that, or even military that really train to work alone. You leave the
right.
helicopter, it's one to one to many.
Hmm.
That evolution that you were just talking about is one of the very few teamwork events where one link in that one link in
Yeah,
that chain
correct.
breaks. You all start going down. Everyone, it's critical, and you're all at that like critical mass of just pushing to your limit.
Hmm.
And not everyone was, they're still weeding people out. That's early
Sure.
on.
Yeah.
So you're actually taking the load for all those other people. You and Derek, you just happened to see him and see his panic, and you probably
Yeah.
saw the same look in your eyes. If you'd have looked the other way, you'd probably seen me doing the same thing. We're
Right.
just doing everything we can, but anything, we're never going to quit.
Right.
But your body is telling you, what the hell are you doing?
Right.
Yeah, it's just kind of interesting because it was a good evolution. And I'm sure from an instructor standpoint, they're just sitting there going, yeah, you're not going to make it. You're not going to make it. You're not, you know.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. No, I totally agree with that. I think they'd already had their idea, had their notions, and or maybe even side bets of who was going to make
Mhm.
it through and who wasn't. And
Yeah. And that's dangerous too, because then
yeah,
you're trying to get people out to win that bet.
sure, sure.
So yeah, I'd say things change for good sometimes, but that pendulum a lot of times just swings way too far, and it
Right.
takes a while for it to really balance out. So it just goes back and forth. So
Yes, sir.
I don't know. I know talking to the people that are running it now, they're they're doing a lot of good stuff.
Oh yeah. No, it's way better now, and I have no regrets. I'm sure you don't either. And obviously, with the evolution of anything, regardless of whether it be what we do or just in any other companies. There's always room for improvement. Process
Hmm.
improvement is a real thing. If you're not looking to improve, then you're just remaining stagnant. And so, look, their level of training, and more specifically, their fidelity of training, is way better than what we got, right? And I know you can remember in your military days, as I was still dealing with a lot of those same issues through my career. It was train like you fight, train like you
Hmm.
fight, train like you fight. Stop simulating everything, because I know you can probably recall those days where we just simulated everything. Everything was
Hmm.
simulation, simulation, simulation. Well, when the rubber meets the road, there's no more simulation. You have to respond, and you need to act, and you just need to hope and pray, and that you were trained well enough, and that you can, during those fight or flight moments, you can calm yourself down long enough to recall what you were trained to do, and hope that you
Hmm.
did it right. And
Yeah, for
and
sure. And that applies so many in different
yeah,
areas of life, like in
totally.
mountaineering, high altitude
Yeah,
mountaineering. It always amazes me. Someone like the Midwest or something. It's like
Right.
training for Everest, like on a flat ground staircase, no glacial travel. It's like if you're not out there doing exactly what you're going to be doing and now add altitude to it,
Yeah.
and people are able to do it, but I just don't get it because I've been in too many scenarios where
Yeah.
I'm so grateful I've had those experiences at lower elevations, but in the same terrain so that I
Right.
could affect rescues and,
Sure.
survive at higher altitude.
Absolutely. No.
Okay, so from there you graduate, we do jumps. How are those first jumps for you?
Oh man, it was awesome, brother. It was awesome, man. Like, I mean, well, yours is your background, and I just remember us being on that motor whale boat all together, wearing our wetsuit top and our UDTs, which we were all proud to get because it
Yeah, you
was a
get them
rite
day one, I
it,
think.
it was a rite of passage for us in UDTs.
Hmm.
In fact, you can recall we got very angry and chat when we see non-SAR guys wearing UDTs.
Hmm.
We'd get so mad. I'm like, wait. What are you, you're a P3 guy. What are you doing wearing those UDTs? You didn't earn
Yeah,
those. And what would they say? They sell them at the Navy Exchange,
exactly.
right? They sell them at the Navy Exchange. Like anybody can go buy them, but not us. Don't get
You earn
caught
them.
wearing UDTs if you weren't a swimmer, right? You had
Yeah.
to earn your UDTs. But in any event, my point is, it was just exciting, man, because that was the culmination of that training what we were there to do, and we're no longer jumping out of a tower over the pool,
Yep.
yelling, screaming our class chant or whatever the case may be, right?
Hmm.
And that's it. We've taught you everything we need to teach you now. Go execute and apply it. And so, I remember my number coming up and jumping out there. And of course, at the time, was like, oh, I need a camera. I need a camera. So I'd go buy that water case Kodak, that you could use in the water to take
Hmm.
those pictures like everybody else was doing. And it was a lot of fun, man. I remember that. It was out of the mighty H3, so cool.
Yeah.
But I know, like yourself, we went 60s, so that cabin was way different from what we were actually doing it in. But at least to actually be up at altitude at either 10 and 10 or 15 foot zero, 0 knots, that it was still way different than jumping out of that tower.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
yeah, it
Yeah.
was a lot of
Even
fun.
60 versus the H3, like the rotor wash, is
Yeah,
so different.
yeah, and even as the years progressed, that's what we looked forward to all the time.
Yeah.
Sorry jumps,
Get
sorry
our
jumps.
quals.
That's it, right?
Absolutely.
Just get the calls, man. That's it.
Well, cool. We can bypass the SAR Mafia and Millington and all that.
Yeah, I don't have too many fond memories of Millington, Tennessee. It was a school. It was dry. It was a lot of secret stuff. And if you asked me what my fondest memory of Millington, Tennessee would be, I would probably say those what we just talked about, the SAR Mafia. When the day your wetsuits showed up at Millington A School, you got them handed to you. You had to. It was you were now part of the SAR Mafia, right? So I just remember that, man. That'd be the only thing I can recall about A School.
Probably have some pictures of that. Thank
I'm
goodness you
sure
go to
you do. I'm
Halo.
sure you do. In fact, I have a couple too that you might be in. In fact, now that I
Uh-oh.
think about it, you and Michael McCaleb. I don't know if you remember
Oh,
Michael.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, Mike and McCaleb and a couple of the other guys. But yeah, I remember those days. But yeah, we can fast forward through that.
Cool. So you went to SEER in Brunswick?
Correct. In November, it was awfully cold, man.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, how
it
was
was
that?
cold. Yeah, it was I remember it was cold, right? Not to
Yeah,
keep
you
repeating
mentioned
myself. It
that.
was cold. It was snowy. That was my first experience with those big, white, huge, insulated boots. They call them bunny boots,
Hmm.
because it was just that cold. And during the time that we were going to be in the field in Maine, um, it was moose hunting season, and season was open. So I
Nice.
remember we had to evade, right? During that
Hmm.
particular phase of training, when we moved on to the evasion phase, we had to wear orange vests. You had to either wear the
You want
vest
to stand
yourself
out?
or wear the orange vest over your backpack or your gear, but the orange vest had to be visible. So they kind
Okay.
of took a little bit of the realism out of it because we're walking through these mountains in the snow wearing a bright orange vest while your instructor cadre is trying to find you.
Yeah.
So,
Well, super cool.
um, so SEER school was quick. Obviously, it was some fundamental training that we needed. Obviously, moving into the our line of work, so I understood it from that aspect. But
Mm,
my memory that I still talk about to this day is two things. One was when you finally had to give yourself up if you didn't get caught, and I didn't get caught.
mm,
So I remember they blew the the horn, and the horn let us know, the remaining students, if you weren't captured yet, to move to the nearest thoroughfare, the major thoroughfare, or in this particular case, a path or road, and just wait,
hmm
and they'd come pick you up. Before I finish that one, there's one more too. It was during during the survival phase of it. You moved around with your group, and I don't know how it was for you, but obviously I'm in the snow in the mountains of Maine, moving through this group, and we had checkpoints we had to meet along the way, and land nav and all that kind of stuff, and then building your little hooch out of your poncho and camouflage and all that kind of stuff. Well,
hmm
one night leading up to the day before we were going to move into the evasion phase of training, we all found a location where we are going to just hole up, kind of hole up for the night. So everyone kind of branched out, making their little hooches and camouflage and stuff. And then that was it. Once you got it done, you got in it, and you didn't stay out of it until we were supposed to muster up the next morning and move on to the next phase of training, which was the evasion part. Well, I don't know what happened, Brian, but I remember waking up and everyone was gone. So I don't know if I overslept, if I slept
Oh
through it,
gosh.
if they slept through it. But my class leader was a young JG. He might have even been an ensign at the time, and they were gone. I got up, put my stuff away, and I'm like, man, I don't see anybody around here. Like, WTF, right? And
Yeah.
so I just still trying to kind of keep an eye on, because I knew where we were in the phase of training, and I just grabbed my stuff, put it all back in my pack, and I'm like, all right, well, I'm on my own. So finish it out. And but I do remember them saying that during the safety portion of the trainings, if you got lost from your group, find a stick and hit the tree 3 times as loud as you can and wait for a reply. And if you don't get a reply, do it again. And if you don't anymore, then just move. Just move on to the next phase. And that's what I did. So I remember getting my stuff, finding a nice stick. I beat it against a tree 3 times. I waited to hear something. Nothing. Did it one more time, and I got a reply. And then moving forward, it was do it. And you guys would just back and forth, do it until you found each other again. And I
Mm,
did it. And that ensign found me,
mm.
but he left the group. So it's kind of like, not to take, it's very symbolic, man. And
Yeah, it's like Jesus left the
exactly. That's
99.
what I was going to tell you. It's like you leave the 99 to find the one, man. And that was kind of it. He left the group to find the one, to go back to find that one lost sheep. And I was the one that was lost, and he came back, and I'm like, so now what? And he goes, well, it's just me and you now. We're on to the next phase of training. So he and I had to evade together.
Mm,
And then eventually we split up, just because we were getting in some tight locations. We split up. So that was one memory of it, getting left behind and getting
mm.
lost. But
Poor
then
little
when I
Jay.
finally gave myself up and got picked up, I'm getting roughed up. I'm getting roughed up. They put a big burlap sack over my head, and they're stacking us up and pushing us into this paddy wagon, if you will, of a truck.
Hmm
And I remember getting in there, and they're telling everybody, don't talk to anybody in their heavy Russian accents, sit Indian
hmm
style, and they're just forcing us all in here. And I'm getting close to this person next to me. I don't know if it was a guy or a girl. I'm getting next to him, and every time I'd move, he'd move, and then still getting people pushed behind you, what have you. And then I don't know what made me do it, Brian, but I they kind of had our hands tied behind our back, so I couldn't pick my hood up, but
hmm
it was so big on my head. I could kind of like toss a little
hmm
bit and kind of like look underneath it.
Yeah.
And I remember doing it. I was like this, looking underneath my hood, and who would it be? The person sitting in front of me was Jeff Still, was right in front of me in this paddy wagon, and he was
Nice.
doing the same thing, because I tapped him on the knee, and he kind of looked up at me, and I looked at him. We made eye contact. We both smiled at each other, like,
Uh-oh.
dude, what are the chances? What are the chances? And here we are sitting next to each other. He smiled, I smiled, we laughed a little bit, and then without hesitation, I got smacked so hard in the back of my head
Hmm.
from communicating with Jeff, and he ripped us both out of that van. This guy, giant instructor, he ripped us both out of the van and made us strip down naked in cold ice, man, cold ice, barefoot, naked, hands straight up like this. And then they moved us into interrogation, me and Jeff, and then everybody else followed. But it was those are my fondest memories of SEER school. Man,
Those sound
yeah,
fun.
it was. We can laugh about it now, but at the
Yeah.
time, it wasn't a lot of fun, dude. Yeah, but
No.
it was
What
good.
would be your one takeaway, the lesson learned from that training?
Uh, I mean, obviously, I think the whole impetus of training was to know why you're there. The whole code of conduct. Learn the code of conduct. You are a military fighting, veteran, an American. And you had to learn that code and
Yeah.
learning how to communicate, understanding. Even though you still might be in captivity, do not give up the fight. Always try to resist as much as possible, but give in to keep yourself alive. Give them just enough to keep yourself alive, but always looking for an opportunity to resist and escape. And the fight's never over. I think that's what I always took from it is
Hmm.
regardless of how beat down you might be, there's still some constants in the world. You're still in the military. You still have a social security number. Your birthday's still going to come. Although you're still in captivity, there's still hierarchy. There's still rank structure. You need to figure out who that senior person is and let them lead. You can't communicate because they don't tell you you can talk, but there's still ways to communicate, right? And I still remember it, and you probably
Yeah.
do too. I remember the acronym. It was Armed Forces Love Quick Victories. Then the next is just a 5 by 5. You can remember how to talk,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
And I just remember that, right? And I mean, I think that's kind of what I took away from it. But to answer your question, it was learning that code of conduct. What does it mean to you? Why were you there? What are they trying to prove to you? And what do you want? And what are they wanting us as you know as like aviators? To take away from that? How can we survive? And if we ever get caught, and
Yeah.
obviously having those clearances and how to survive. And that's what I take away from it. Again, it was and like you stated earlier, is like a lot of individual stuff. This is digging deep, a lot about the kind of person that you are, right, and how you
Hmm.
can move through it and execute and apply all that training they're trying to teach you. So yeah, that's what I think what I recall most from SEER school, man. Other than the fact that it was just cold and getting
Hmm.
lost.
I feel like I've talked to a lot of people about like Sierra and even did a chapter of it, Calm in the Chaos, and didn't get redacted, so I did it good. Um,
Nice, nice.
you don't go in, you don't come out of Sear the same person you went in.
Yeah,
It can be life changing. It's a very traumatic experience for a reason.
right,
But we also apply those lessons in our normal life.
right.
Like, how do you think it reshaped you and like, what do you apply in your normal life?
Well, to go back a little bit to answer that question is Brian, we've said numerous times now just how young we were when we joined
Hmm.
the Navy, the military. We knew what we wanted to do. We knew where our ultimate destination was. I can honestly, right now, as I sit here with you, look back on those days and those training. My answer, if you would have asked me that question at that time, you would have gotten a very different answer. But now
Sure.
that I'm 51, about to be 52, and I can reflect on those days, I
Crazy,
can
huh?
honestly tell you right now, looking back during those training days, I probably didn't understand and take in the full breadth of what they were trying to impose on us, the training. It was more fun for me, right? I mean, you'd ask me, hey, what's your most vivid moment of SEER school? I could have said well, learning how to survive and make my, no, man, it was me getting beat up
Hmm.
and running into Jeff Still and us getting beat up, that's, and laughing about it, right? So
Hmm.
can I honestly look back and say I probably didn't take some of that stuff so serious? Maybe not. I was just taking it in stride, one day at a time, man. I just knew I just had
Also
to
a
get,
survival mechanism that you've
yeah,
learned throughout your
yeah,
life. We
exactly. It
find
was,
humor in the most intense,
yeah,
crazy moments, and that's what,
yeah,
you lose
yeah,
your mind, you lose your life.
yeah. 100, man. And I couldn't agree more. And you of all people, man, like I don't even feel, I'm humbled to just even be in your presence, man, like that. Because of what you were
Whatever.
able to accomplish, man. It's like, man, I don't even know what I would have done. in those cases. But um, like I said, he was like, "Hey man, you want to join my podcast?" I mean, I'm nothing special, bro. I mean, there's
No,
nothing
I know.
special
I
about
I
me.
validated that for you.
Yeah, I know. There's
I
nothing,
said
nothing
I said we
special about
need
me.
less special
Uh,
people on this
but
podcast, and you're perfect for
it,
that.
it's it was an answer your question. I probably didn't take a lot of I probably didn't see the value, the true value of a lot of that stuff. I was just young, immature, still trying to figure it out, moving through just each segment at a time. And I feel, not to keep going back on it, because I know that we have a goal here with this podcast, is
I don't know about that.
every time I found myself in some very challenging positions, even now, Brian, even now, I have my faith to fall back on now.
Hmm.
But even then, it all goes back to one thing and one thing only, and it's still true to this day. How I was raised, I did a lot of surviving in those years, a lot as a childhood, and they formed the person and the man that I've become today. I was surviving, and it was fight or flight for me almost every day. Like I was struggling to survive in my childhood every day. I
Hmm.
just wanted to just get through the day. Am I going to eat today? Am I going to have to go to bed hungry again? Will I see my mom today? Uh, or am I going to go another couple days and not see any family member? It was tough times, man. So, but I think I look back on it, I have no resentment to my mom or any of my family and the things that she had to do. God bless her, she's still here, but she did the best she could possibly do. But I was left to survive, Brian, on my own devices as a young kid. As a young kid, and so I think looking back on it, if there's any silver lining at all, what I'm going to take away to, again, long answer without being any more verbose to your question is it was all for a reason. They made me the person that I was, and it was so when I was going through all those things, those trainings where I was challenged and you can quit right now if you want to. Well, that just wasn't an option. Why? Because I always say, hey, I thank my mother. I was like, Mom, I did not enjoy those years of my life. I did not enjoy being bounced around from household to household, from this person to that person, thinking this person was my family when they really weren't. It was just someone that you
Hmm.
hired to watch me, who I called aunt or whomever the case may be. Going hungry. I told my wife just the other day, my first encounter with jalapenos was seeing some sit on a table at this home that this lady that used to babysit me all the time, and I was so damn hungry that I knew what they were, and I knew they were going to burn my mouth. And I knew there was going to be an experience that I did not ever want to do again, but I was so damn hungry
Yeah,
that I was going to eat them anyway. And my wife's crying, right? She's like, I can't believe that. And I'm like, that's the truth. I have no reason to lie to you. I was eating jalapenos because I was hungry. And if I wasn't eating jalapenos, I was eating butter, just straight butter. Like,
same
not a
thing.
sob story here, but again, I just go back, man, I don't know. I just felt like I had this warrior spirit inside of me. I'd been knocked
Yeah,
down so many times growing up, and I made it through. What else could possibly there be? Like, what could there be that could kill me? Right? I'm in
yeah,
charge. I can get through this. It's just one period of time. Just get through it. And so I think
yeah.
those survival instincts for me, that's what I that's what I was taking away from everything in those times. And when those in those times were, hey, I was challenged. Like you said, hey, you just had to find your humor. It's like, yeah, hey, I've been through worse. This is nothing. And
Well, and there's no going, there's no option B
correct, right?
for
And
you and a
so
lot of us I went through. I will not go back to that, so I will
yeah,
die trying
correct.
this.
Right, exactly. And I was like, I had nowhere to go to, Brian. So
Yeah,
when you say we had nowhere else to go. That was truth for me. I had nowhere else to go. Like it was again, this, the officer and a gentleman type thing. I had nowhere else to go, man. Like this
yeah.
was it. I had to get through it and make through it so I could live to fight another day, and so I could eat. And so I
Isn't
think,
it so interesting that so many of us we were in similar situations, but
yeah,
when we were there peer to peer, we didn't know any of this about each other.
of course,
We just
yeah,
leaned on each other. We were trauma
yeah,
bonding.
yeah.
We had a new family.
Yeah, absolutely, man. 100%, dude. And I'll never forget you guys, dude. I think about you guys all the time. I really do. In fact, right before we collect on today, I was like, man, Brian is in a position where he has contacts with everybody, everybody now, more so than me. We need to get together, man. I know
Hmm.
we've said this many times before, but we're not getting any younger, man. We're not. And we need to get our group back together, at least as many as we can, and just meet up someplace and
Yeah.
just bond, man. Just talk about what we're talking about now, and what we're doing now, and our wives and our children and everything else, and just enjoy it because we'll never get those days back, dude, ever.
Yeah, yeah, and every day is a gift. I mean, tomorrow may
That's right.
never come, so we
That's
can
right.
talk about getting together if we don't actually do it. Someone take ownership of that.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about that offline because I
Yes,
agree.
sir. Yes, sir. I agree.
Okay, so you made it through SEER. Um, went to the frac, flying in. You were HS, right?
Correct. Yeah. Went to HS1 in Jacksonville.
All right, and then let's yeah, we could be on here all day, and I would
Yeah.
I would love that. But let's talk about a defining moment. So if for those that haven't read the book, so I interviewed Jay for a just traumatic helicopter crash that you had out of Kuwait.
Hmm.
And it's interesting because in my next book, Bloodline of Redemption,
Right.
it's it's a thriller, but I use kind of that story as a flashback, changing, some of the outcome and some of it, but it's like
Right.
it's using all these like real stories because
Right.
hey, if you love high stakes action, military intrigue, and stories that keep you turning pages late into the night, you won't want to miss my new thriller, Bloodline of Redemption. From a rogue Russian submarine on a covert nuclear mission to the unforgiving peaks of the world's deadliest mountains, it's a nonstop ride of suspense and survival. Order your copy now on Amazon or wherever books are sold and dive into the mission. Man, when you told me that story, I'm writing frantically, like just trying to get everything accurate. And then I
Hmm.
sent it to you, and you're like, "Yeah, that's not true." So, a little back and forth, and
It's all good. It's all good. I remember that conversation too. You're like, "Don't worry, man. Don't worry. It's all good." It's all good.
but
It's yeah. Hey, the reader's not guys like you and me, man. It's people that need it. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. You're right. You're right. They'll get what they want out of it for sure. But yeah,
yeah,
no,
well,
man. Yeah. Go
try.
ahead.
We try and we fail, but
Yeah.
at least we're trying. But yeah, bring us through like pick a defining moment. I know you had medevacs, some SARS where you were hoist operator,
Yeah.
two crashes, multiple, forward operating CSAR deployments with
Yeah.
the green ink. I don't know, pick one. Let's
Yeah.
talk through it.
I mean, we can we can peel the scab off of that one in the book if you want. I mean, that's pretty
Sure.
much that was the last one. That was my second crash and the most memorable of the two. Or yeah, of the two, obviously they're both traumatic, but that one was the one that I kind of think about the most,
Yeah.
really. And then in any other moment that you'd want me to kind of pull out of the annals here is probably stuff that's not that it definitely would not compete with that story, but I do remember that day. um I had just made so timeline here. I remember the day. The crash was October 7th, 2004. Yes, in Kuwait. And the reason why I remember that is because I was just pinned a chief on September 16th of that same year.
Hmm.
So I just made chief. So mind you, as we can all both recall, you grow up with this, you're working and operating with this group and you're all friends, and then one day E6s and E5s, and then one day you make chief, or your buddy who is an E5 or your OPO makes chief, and then you guys can't really kind of hang out that much anymore. You know what I'm saying? So
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of like one of those things because fraternization, right? So you had to draw the line in the sand. And so I just remember that was a it was we were on deployment, the USS 67, the John F. Kennedy, the only CV carrier still left in the inventory at that time. And I was on the ship. They sent me back to the ship to finish. And I was excited, man, because I made chief and I'm like, I'm good. I'm going to be out here, with the boys in the dirt. And they sent me back to the ship so I can go through what I still refer to as the reindeer games. Had to go
Okay.
to the chief petty officer reindeer games, and I remember when I was done going through all that process and pinning on chief that I requested to go back, and I'm like, okay, so they sent me back, and so I went. We had to do some. We were doing some stints on some ships, on some gators too. I did cross deck from the Essex and to the Bella Wood, and then from there we moved to the Fob, and that's kind of how that just to give you a little background story. That's
Mhm.
how that went, and I moved to the Fob on Arif John, which is where I crashed, and that one, like I said, it was Groundhog Day, man. Every day was the same thing. We're getting up. If it was your day to fly, your mission planning, mission prepping, breaking out guns, armor, hitting the AOs for ammo, the standard stuff. Pre-flight. Overall mission brief, and then your flight brief, and it was just everything was just the same. But and I'm sure you can recall too, back in your days, they would set up flight crews or combat crews in this
Mhm.
particular case. So a combat crew, I just had my crew. And so the idea behind that was not only would you build that synergy and that camaraderie together, but you start learning the isms,
Mhm.
which was a fine line because as you can recall, being in aviation, we had that giant animal, giant white sleeping pill known as NATOPS. They would always tell you that complacency kills. And I know you know that. I knew that. But so it was a fine line in having a combat crew that you flew with day in, day out. I didn't fly with any other people other than my combat crew.
Yep.
So you start learning how to predict. I knew how that lieutenant worked. I knew how that lieutenant flew, and we start learning each other. When you start feeding each other, learning each other, which can there's a fine line because then you're getting really, really close to complacency,
Mhm.
right? And so the day before my crash, we briefed, and I can say that it was a legitimate brief. We didn't cut any corners. We did everything like we were supposed to above board, and we had just taken off, and we blew a hydraulic line. And hydraulic line to the point where it was in the back rear cabin. And luckily, I had my visor on because typically we were just wearing glasses.
Mhm.
And but I had my visor on right after takeoff, and thank goodness because the hydraulic line blew, and it was blowing, spewing hydraulic fluid all over my face. And I remember saying and yelling over ICS and expletive. And Lieutenant the hack at the time was like, what's going on back there, Shrop? And I said, hey, we just blew a hydraulic line. We need to land now. And we declared an emergency and we landed, uneventful. Now, it was a major hydraulic line into the Brian. I'm gonna pull some stuff out of my sphincter here, but I want to say it was probably
Mhm.
the
Go for it.
one of the servos. We are blowing hydraulic fluid. Um,
Okay.
and I can't recall which one, but I just remember getting doused because the aircraft were old, man. So you remember the blue padding, soundproofing we had an overhead at some point in our career, and I'm sure you had it at two or wherever else you were. Once those got covered in oil and they could no longer, the PRs could no longer do much repairs to them anymore, they just pulled them out,
Mhm.
and that's kind of how we were. It was
This
in an
was the
HH,
hotel.
yeah, it was in an HH, and the soundproofing was just we just started pulling it out because
Mhm.
it would get in the way and it start, when the windows are open, your guns are hanging out, it's just they start flapping and creating that resonance, and we just get rid of them. And so I could
Mhm.
see up in the cabin, and which wasn't much to see, but I know you know that picture. For those of
Mhm.
us who know, I know you know what that looks like. And so when it blew, I'm getting fluid. Obviously, it's getting stuck in the windstream, and it's all flying on me. So we land uneventfully, and we were supposed to fly back to the ship to get parts. And so it was an uneventful flight that day. Um, and but we were still armed because of the transit. And so uh, we land. The maintenance team was like, "We don't have the part. We can't fix it. Can we fabricate the part? Can you take it off of the one?" Because we were two to make one, and
Mhm.
uh, and we couldn't rob it off of the other helo because then we'd be down two, essentially.
Right.
So we're like, "Yeah, no, fabricate the part." And we were the only Navy on an Army base. Of course, they had Blackhawks, but a lot of things are the same. But there weren't any there, so we were
Mhm.
just we were robbing Peter to pay Paul, trying to find a way to make it work. And at the time, the maintainers, as you know, they're they're amazing at what they do. They
Yep.
fabricated a part, a line and then they welded it to create the repair. And I remember of course, I don't remember the entities and the nuances, but I would imagine now looking back on it, it probably required a lot of approval. And the ultimate approval would have been probably from the boss, the CO at the time. Of course, it would have had to have it would have had to gone through the channels, the maintenance chief at the time, they're running the desk and maintenance control has to run it through the maintenance officer who was on the ship, and the maintenance officer has to run up the flagpole and make his decision recommendation to the boss, and the boss has to give the approval for the one-time flight. Well, it was a necessity. We needed the parts, man. We needed the parts, and we needed other things, so we had to go get these parts. We had to get there. So the boss okayed a one-time flight to the ship on an aircraft that had blown a major hydraulic line the day before. And the only way to fix it was to fabricate a line.
Oh.
Like you're just making stuff up, like MacGyver stuff.
Hmm.
And of course, we had to. I remember they said, "Oh, hey, before we take off, we're going to be stuck on the deck for probably about a good an hour or so because we're going to do all these maintenance turns to test to test the part if it's going to hold and do a leak test for spin under pressure to see if it can hold long enough that we can make the flight." And so a lot of our time that day was spent after we'd already briefed. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. That brief, since we were combat crews, and I took the time to tell you that because that played a lot into moving on to the next day. Since we're a
Hmm.
combat crew, it was the same flight, same mission, same everything. And I remember the hack just saying, "Hey, we're all still the same. Anything change, Shrop? No, ma'am." And all right, same brief as yesterday. Any questions with that? No, ma'am. We're good. And we'll just move on. And we said, okay, ready, break. They moved on to do their pilot only brief. I moved on to do my air crewman only brief with my crew. I had two gunners, young guys, young E5s. Of course, I was a newly frocked chief, Brian. My
Hmm.
IAD said rank E7, pay grade E6. So I wasn't even getting paid as a chief yet because I was young. But of course, I'm the man. So I had to make the call. And these young guys are like, come on, chief, come on. You know, just let us fly in gunner's belts. Because that's what we were doing, man. We are taking off in gunner's belts, landing in gunner's belts.
Sure.
And let me go back. NATOP said you weren't allowed to take off and land in gunner's belts.
Yeah. Yep.
So let's redact that. We followed
Redact
NATOP
that from
rules.
the pod.
Yeah, right. And so in any event, I said no that day. I said, no, we're not wearing gunner's belts today. In fact, I want full equipment the way we're supposed to. Visors down, take off your glasses, sleeves all the way rolled down, gloves on, wear it the right way, in your seat, locked for takeoff and landing. If we want to get into a gunner's belt after that, we're fine.
Do you think was there some sort of premonition, or was it because you were a new chief and there was a bigger spotlight on you?
Probably a little bit of both, but I think really the ultimate inner voice that would push me to make that leadership decision, which was unpopular because my guys didn't like it. Was hot, man.
Yeah,
It was hot.
I would
We're
have been
wearing
pissed.
everything known to man, and someone had to be wet, and it was like me telling them that we had to uh, be in gunner's belts and everything on was like you're asking a lot. So, but to answer your question, yes, it had a lot to do with the fact that I was a newly chief. But to put that in perspective, is I had to make those decisions. I had to be I had to be the leader.
Yep.
But that wasn't really the biggest thing helping me make the decision that day. What was driving my decision was I knew we blew a hydraulic line, a
Hmm.
major one the day before. We're flying the same helicopter with a manufactured, fabricated line. We just did penalty turns on deck to see if it would hold, and we're now going to fly this thing to the beach, or correction, over the horizon, off land, over water to the ship. It was just my thought. I'm like, we're trained for this. If we go down and we don't make it, I want to at least give myself and my crew a fighting chance. Stay attached to the aircraft, Hopefully 95 procedures apply and we're good. And that was really the impetus for me to make that unpopular leadership decision that day, because not long after takeoff is when it all went to crap. And
Want to show your support for Calm the Chaos and the stories of our nation's elite rescue swimmers? Check out our exclusive merch line shirts, hats, and stickers designed for those who live with courage and purpose. Military and first responders get 10% off each order. Just use the code SARRESCUE10, SARRESCUE, the number 10, SARRESCUE10, at checkout. Grab yours today on Amazon or briandickinson.net/store and wear your support proudly so others may live.
and I think we only survived because we were strapped in our seats. And I'm not
Yeah.
patting myself on the back. It happened the way that it happened.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, I don't really know. But I think that was really the driving force behind making that decision that day.
Okay. So you
And
guys take off?
yeah, we took off, and we were climbing, coming out of it like 150 feet. Obviously, you recall we always have to take off into the wind. So we were taking off, going the opposite direction, because of the wind on the airfield. So we took off, climbing up. We're on ATC, talking to the controlling agency. They're giving us, hey, you're clear to commence a left-hand turn, climb to 250, blah, blah, and then request pigeons. Lock on the tack end of the ship, see if we can get a lock to get us pointed in the right direction. So we're coming around, making a left-hand turn, climbing through 200, somewhere around 250 feet, getting ready to level out. We leveled out, and it was probably around about that time. Now the time frame, Brian, it just happened so quick, man. I have no semblance of time. I just remember what happened, and it was we were climbing, coming out of a turn, leveling out, wings level, climbing through about 200, 250 feet, and then that's when it happened. I heard what I still recalled, and the way I explained it to the investigators was it sounded like a large piece of metal being dragged across concrete or an or a rough surface. That's what it sounded like. And it was literally just metal. We'll come to find out it was metal to metal grinding, because we had sheared the number 6 tail drive shaft at the viscous dampener. And I know you remember that because it was the teeth. We would break the tail away so you can fold it, put it away, and stuff it on the ship. Well, those teeth on the viscous dampener sheared 2 or 3 teeth. And so once the teeth sheared on it, it was no longer making the coupling, the connection to turn the tail rotor. So we lost tail rotor when that sheared. So that grinding noise that I was describing was the actual the connection, the quick disconnect, no longer making the connection, which when that happened, we would stop spinning, the tail rotor stopped spinning. So when the tail rotor stopped spinning, we lost our ability to maintain level flight, because that obviously counteracts the main rotor. And so that's when we started spinning. And that's when it kind of became real clear, because we were all like, what was that? What was that? And what is that? And the pilot's up front, my hack is yelling at me like, hey, I need a report. What's going on back there? And I'm like, and that happened that quick. And then before I could even answer the question, we all knew, because we started spinning uncontrollably. And then that's when, and I can't even recall really that time, like how much time had elapsed. I just remember falling out of the sky. I mean, because that's what the EP said, man. The EP is, wings level, eyes on the horizon, lower the collective, enter the auto rotation. And that was the pilot that controls. That's what she did, right? The EP for the pilot not at the controls is hands on the PCLs, pull the PCLs off so he can dampen the rotation. And then hopefully we can hit and cushion it at the bottom at an auto rotation. But that just never happened, Brian. None of it ever happened. We didn't flare. I know you've done your fair share of auto rotations in California. I've done my fair share. We knew what an auto rotation was supposed to feel like.
Yeah.
And we did not auto rotate. We were falling out of the sky uncontrollably, spinning. And the spin just got faster and faster and faster, to the point where I could no longer make out the visual. And I was just trying to, I mean, what was I going to do, brother? I was just hanging on, right? I knew it was going to hurt. I knew it was going to be a ride. I just didn't know how I was going to end up. And then I just remember the initial impact. And then I remember the impact, and then bouncing and hitting the ground again, and bouncing and hitting the ground again. And then next thing you know, we're just flipping end over end, end over end, end over end, until we finally just came to a complete stop. And then it was just like my crewmen, my two gunners at the time were yelling. They were young E5s yelling, get out, get out, get out, get out, get out. And I'm like, no, no, man. I mean, it was at this point now is, could I tell you that could I say I was in shock? I don't know, man. I was just in more disbelief that what had just happened, what had just transpired. Now I'm the senior guy. And as we both know in our EPs, the senior guy, most coherent guy takes charge. I'm just like, all I can remember now is it was no longer what just happened. I knew what just happened. And it was no longer, well, what do we do now? I knew what we needed to do now. We needed to get out. But I'm trying to get my gunners under control because they're both panicking, one of them in particular, panicking. And I use that term loosely, but the fear was from them, one of them in particular was very vocal, was he thought that the aircraft was going to explode. So
Yep.
that was the urgency to get out of the helo. Now, mind you, Brian, there's still dust everywhere. We landed in sand,
Hmm.
and the main cabin door was open on my side. Um, and I'm looking down into dirt everywhere. I'm eating it, right? So my
Hmm.
left gunner is now above me. I'm looking up at him, right? And he's up there just looking up at the sky, still strapped in. I've got my right gunner like in the fuselage still, but he's, we're all kind of, and there he's yelling at me. And I'm like, I said no. I said no, and I gave him the clenched fist. I said, no, stay in the helo. And the reason why I made that decision, Brian, is because the main rotor was still spinning.
Hmm.
Right? So, and you can recall this. I know it's been a long time for you, but I know you'd still, I know you'd still remember. You exit the helo after all violent motion stops, and like the last thing I wanted to do was survive what we just went through to only try to egress the helicopter, not knowing where the blades were. All I knew was there was reciprocating machinery still spinning at a high rate of RPM, and I was not getting out.
Yeah.
I was safe in there, stay in there. And then out of nowhere, you just hear it start winding down. And then once it died down and it came to a complete stop, I said, "Let's go." And I released and we crawled out. And
So you were the cabin door was basically on the ground now. So you went out the windows.
yeah, I actually crawled. There was just enough room for me to kind of. I didn't have to really dig myself out of the main cabin door very much, but I had just enough room to get my body through the aircraft that was buried in the sand and that opening. So it was probably maybe 24 inches
Hmm.
of from the top. Now, mind you, the top of the cabin door to the desert floor. There was just enough where I could release. I fell into the sand and I crawled and I pulled myself out of that opening.
Oh,
The gunner up on top of me, he came through and we all came out. We all came out through the window or the main cabin door, which
okay.
is yeah, they followed me out, if that makes any sense. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
how we egressed the helo at that point. Yeah.
Wow. So in looking back, or I mean, even in real time, the rotors, you had a rotor strike, they broke loose, but there was still a portion of it digging into the sand until
Yeah.
they were free. And then
Yeah.
it just, like gravity or whatever, just
Yeah.
let it wind down.
Yeah, resistance. I imagine just hitting it to some degree. I didn't know how much of the rotor blades were still left. All I knew is I could still hear the main transmission spinning.
Yeah.
So I wasn't going to get out until it was done. You know.
Were the engines still running? Like was it that same scream without the rotors? Do you remember?
Well, I don't know, Brian. I'm just trying to now answer your question the best I can, knowing how that aircraft operates. And if everything's being fed off of those input modules, the input modules, the accessory modules, your main transmission, right? And everything works together in
Mhm.
concert. And so looking back at it, if my engines weren't still on, let's just call that for the sake of argument, the
Mm.
PCLs, the power control levers, right? Which I know you still remember. The main rotor head only spins off of the turbo shaft that's coming out of the engine to turn the accessory modules and to make everything else turn. So my logic is if the main rotor head's still spinning, then the engines are still on. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
So
that's why I'm asking, like, did it go from just complete and total
it wound down.
chaos to
It
like
wound
completely silent?
after everything shut down, completely silent.
Yeah.
So it was a and then that was it. I heard it die down, and that was what I was looking for. And
Yeah.
but still, so this is just my recollection of it, Brian. Still to this day, I have never read the after action report or the, I guess in this particular point, the safety investigation report, the SIR. I've never read it. I'm the only one of my crew that still has never read it, and I just don't know if I want to read it. And I've been asked if I wanted a copy of it, and I've always declined. I was like, I know what happened. I don't need any scientific explanations as to what happened and who. Because I mean, you can recall too, Brian. How many SIRs did we live through? Whether it was us directly or just as a community, or this
Hmm.
squadron messed up, or this squadron crashed, and they all perished, and everything's written in blood. We've always said that everything is written in blood. The rules are all written in blood, so we don't all make the same mistakes. But even then, even if you didn't do anything wrong, those SIRs are designed by nature to figure out all causal factors. What went wrong that day, starting 5 days prior? They wanted to know what you ate, how many times you ate, how much sleep you had, what you
Hmm.
were doing, all the way leading up to the flight, to everything that you did during the flight, and then they just scrutinize everything. Well, the crew chief did this when he should have done this, reference NATOPS or whatever the case may be. You know what I'm saying? So it's like they're always going to pick it apart. And I'm
Sure.
not going to sit here and say that I did everything right,
No.
because I don't know. But I just didn't want to read it because I knew what would happen, and I didn't want my image or my recollection of that memory to be skewed, or to me start questioning anything else based off of some other third, fourth party who had who got the nod to go investigate it that day,
Yeah.
and then make their own assumptions. Granted, I'm not saying that they don't know what they're doing and or what they're talking about, because I was always an aviator in the CAG, as part of the CAG, so I knew they knew what they were talking about. It was just I just had it was my decision. It's like, I'm not going to sit here and read some scientific response based off allegations and what they were able to find and pinpoint as a result of their line of questioning to come up with what they believe happened. And
Mhm.
you weren't there.
Yeah.
That's just,
That's my
you weren't there.
It's a
So,
great philosophy. I get
mhm,
asked all the time. In fact, I'll be on like Today's Show or Good Morning America or whatever.
yeah,
Anytime something happens in the Himalayas or Everest, and that's my philosophy, and I agree with it. If
mhm,
you're not there, it's really hard to comment. I don't comment because I
yeah,
have
yeah,
been there.
yeah,
And
exactly.
I know there's so many variables that happen, so many things that can go right or wrong. You live and die by the decisions you make, but it's based
Right.
on the information you have within a 3 foot reach.
Mhm.
So I completely get it. I
Yeah,
just
yeah,
wonder at some point it might be a release to
yeah,
actually read it and realize, because you do know
yeah,
right from wrong, and it's probably not as bad as you probably think, but
yeah,
that's something that you have to walk out yourself, and I
yeah,
totally
yeah, for
understand that.
sure. Yeah, no. So that's pretty much it, man. And then I mean, I can keep going. It's not the end of the story. I mean, but what
Well,
I
let's talk
recall,
about injury, because I
you,
know you stuck around, and
oh,
yeah,
buddy, yeah,
it was
man.
interesting how that all worked out. Like
Yeah,
when everyone else was gone, again, you're left alone.
yep. And yeah, so I mean, I think I didn't start feeling any pain until days after, man. I was just amped up on adrenaline, still shock. They
Mhm.
gave me, of course, we're dealing with the army medics, and they docs and giving us just stuff to sleep, so here, just take these. They were probably downers to some degree.
Or
Um,
peyote or something.
Yeah, who knows? Just but because I was just amped up, man, we couldn't sleep, so it just gave me something to help me sleep. But yeah, I was left on the scene, and the QRF and the medical package took everybody, left me there, and I stayed there with the rest of the cavalry that were all rescuers, there to rescue. And I just remember saying, what do I do? What do you want me to do, or what should I do? I don't even really remember how I asked it specifically, but I just remembered that was my inquiry, like, what do I do now?
Hmm.
And then I remember being asked, like, well, what do you mean? What do you do? And I'm like, well, what do I do? Like, uh, that was my crew. I just, man, I just crawled out of that myself. And they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, is it, you were a crew member in there? I'm like, yeah, I was the crew chief in that aircraft. And then that's when it just turned into another scenario. It was a scenario on top of us, behind the scenario that the
Hmm.
major one, the major show had ended. because the package had already left, which is everyone from the crew, the hack, the co-pilot, and my two gunners already left, in an ambulance and the cavalry, and I'm still there, and I had to drive back in a Humvee with the QRF team and the rescuers there, and they dropped me off the medical. But that was the only option.
Yeah.
It was it was like they try to, and then I walked in, and then I had to explain myself, like I'm like in the Army's emergency room there on the fob. Like, why
Hmm.
are you here? And I'm like, well, I just was just in a helicopter crash. And they're like, oh, you mean the crew that we already have here from the helicopter crash? I'm like, yes. And I can't remember if it was a sergeant, whoever I was talking to. But yes, that's my crew. I was in that helicopter. And like, you crashed with the people that are already here in the back. And I said, yes. And then they had to medically take me down. And they literally took me down to the ground as a unit, maintaining C-spine. And then that's what that. And I was just like, you guys got to be kidding me. I just walked up here. You guys left me there. I just walked here under my own power. And then you had to take me down and maintain C-spine because that's the protocol, right?
Yeah.
And so pain, like you asked about pain. I was like, I don't remember really feeling anything at the time, Brian. It was just days afterwards where I started to just, it was just it now. It was all I was replaying it over and over and over after
Yeah.
the adrenaline
Got it.
had come down. I know you know what I'm talking about, and now you just start playing it back. Okay,
Yeah.
how did that go down? Or what do I remember? Could I have done this better or differently? Or now I'm just now I'm just what ifing it to death. And I was
Hmm.
my own worst enemy because I'm what ifing it. Hey, what if we were still on gunner's belts? What if all that went through my head first? Not the fact that I was standing there living, having this
Hmm.
inner dialogue with myself. I was just beating myself up over, well, what if this would happen differently? About, I wouldn't be here right now, and everything else. So,
Yeah.
um, I went through the initial protocols there at the fob at medical, and I had to get my triage, obviously get that out of the way, and X-rays and everything else, and I just remember them telling me that yeah, you have what's called compression arthralgia in your back, and we'll have to send you back to the ship for further evaluation. They were limited there, and back to the ship, and we're just here, just eat these, which was just flex. They gave me Flexerol, muscle relaxers, and the vitamin M, which I know you know what that is, which is Motrin. They always gave us Motrin, right? Motrin and some
Hmm.
Flexerol, and just sent me packing. And have a nice day. You survived. And that was kind of how it was. Just I was shocked, man. I was shocked at
Hmm.
just how it all went down because I was like, all right.
Layers of shock.
Right. I'm like, okay, I was just in a catastrophic class A mishap, and you're just sending me back to my tent with some Flexerol, and I'm good to go. Like, all
Yeah. How
right.
was everybody else?
Um, the hack, the two gunners, I think pride, really. I don't think anything happened. They just pride, really. They were just nothing, if I recall, nothing happened to them.
Hmm.
Um, the pilot, the hack, she broke her foot. And I think had some, obviously some scratches and dinged up, and then the JG, he might even been a lieutenant at the time. He I think he broke his wrist, if I remember correctly, and then me, I just had back injuries from the compression,
Yeah.
and that was it. Those were so nothing major, luckily,
Yeah.
considering if I showed you a picture of that helicopter, Brian, you'd be like,
Think you did.
I may have, but I keep looking to the right here because in my office right here, I've got all my flight equipment and everything sitting right up here, and there's a lithograph of a guy that did that for a living. He drew lithographs for different airframes and platforms. Well, the pilot, the hack that I had at the time, she'd reached out to this guy and said,
Hmm.
"Hey, can you draw us a lithograph of the helicopter that we flew that day?" Because they never put that. The Navy wanted to put that helicopter back together, unbeknownst to me, and I don't think it ever happened. But I was like, "There's no way you're putting that thing
Hmm.
back together." But they wanted to, but it never came back to service. But
Yeah.
I'm looking at it because that's it. That was it. That he drew a lithograph
Yeah.
of
Have to
aircraft
send me
six
a
one.
take a picture of it and send it to me.
Yeah, well, it's aircraft 617, and it says aircraft lost in Kuwait, October 7th, 2004. And he
Oh.
numbered it, and the artist signed it. And and there's me in the cabin, which is just a drawing, but
Yeah.
that's
Well,
it. So that's kind of, and it's just a drawing, it's just a lithograph, but I look at it all the time, and I found those pictures because my wife was like, I want to see it, I want to see it, and I showed it to her, and she's like, oh my God, you lived through that? And I'm like, yeah, well, we all lived through that, and she was just in shock. So yeah, like you
yeah.
said, just layers and layers of some shock, but to experience all that, go through all that, to finally just get left behind, to walk myself into medical, tell them I just crashed in a helo they were
Get
familiar
taken
with, and
down.
they just send me back to the tent with some Flexerol, and you'll be good to go. And
How long before
believe it
you
or
flew
not,
back to the ship?
yeah, so I had to go back to the ship to recover.
How was that flight? That's the next flight after
It,
a
it wasn't a
catastrophe.
flight. It wasn't a flight. So here's what happened. So to work all those logistics out. The ship was due to pull into a port, and I can't remember oh, actually, I do remember. The port was Jebel Ali, right?
Yeah.
Like, how many times have you been there?
Too
Right?
many.
Right? Yeah, many, right? So it was the sand pit, what we call it the sandbox, right? It was Sandbox Liberty. And so we were all confined to basically the sandbox. No one was allowed to go in town, do all the things that many of us have probably done many, many, many times, yourself included. So it was just sand pit liberty there at the pier.
Hmm.
And so they had to bus us in. And that was a long bus drive.
Yeah, I was gonna ask. Quite a ways.
Yeah, it was a long bus drive. And it took us about a good day, and maybe
Hmm.
longer to get there. And then I just remember driving up and getting off one bus and walking through the ship's MAA. So they set up the perimeter, the security perimeter, what have you, and showing ID, and they let us in, and that was it. And so I got to spend a few days there in port on Liberty, but I slept a lot of it
Yeah.
while I was there because I was still on some pretty good drugs. But here's not to get ahead of you, 'cause I know you have some more questions, but I was down the minimum amount of time pending investigation and pending being cleared by the flight surgeon to start flying again. And I remember the flight surgeon asking me, he said, hey, Shrop, the best medicine for all of you, not just you, but for all of you, is to get back in the straps.
Hmm.
I can't have you sitting out of the straps that long, because the longer you sit out of the straps, the harder it is for you to get back in it. So
Yeah.
the best medicine and the best for me is to get you back in and get you flying as quickly as possible. And some of my other crew members are like, no, no, they needed more time. And I don't know what it was, Brian. It could have been some pride. I don't know. I was like, oh man, I'm better than this. I'm harder. It was just a crash. I'm here. Yeah, I'm ready to go. So I had to wait my minimum, which was 30 days. And they threw me right back on the flight schedule. We ended the port visit. We took off, we pulled out and went back to doing what we're doing. My time on the fob's over because obviously it was catastrophic. So I'm stuck finishing out this deployment on the ship. And 30 days had gone by, and they asked me, hey, we want to put you on the flight schedule tomorrow. Are you ready? And I'm like, yeah, sure. I mean, what was I going to say? No, I'm not ready. I wasn't going to say that. Even if I was feeling it, I wasn't going to say that because I knew what the ultimate it would be. Someone else is going to take it the shorts for me. And it's a team player. I just want to be a team player. Yeah, let me get back in. Stop being a pussy. Right. So I said,
Hmm.
yeah, throw me back on the straps. Throw me on the flight schedule. My first flight, Brian, and I'm not kidding you. I remember after the flight schedule came out, I went because I was a chief, mind you, and I went to my buddy who was the LCPO senior chief, Don Kessler. I'll never forget him. I'm like, Don, I used some colorful words, but I was like, you guys trying to kill me, man? He goes, what? I'm like, seriously, man, are you trying to kill me? And he's like, what are you talking about? I was like, this is my first flight since my mishap, right? And he goes, yeah, so what? I'm like, nighttime NVG initial DOQs
Oh
with a
gosh.
pilot who got it waived and never completed it out of HS-10. So we got a pilot from HS-10, Brian, who never got DOQs as part of the FRS. They sent him to us anyway without it. He gets to us in theater, and we now have to qualify him.
No,
And
it's a bad idea.
I'm like, you're looking at, yeah, I'm going to ask you again. Are you trying to effing kill me? First flight in the straps, night, DOQs, over water with a pilot who's never done it before. What do you want me to do, man? Want me to take you off, put you on something else? Daytime? You just want to look a day dick around with what he said? I'm like, is that going to make you happy? I'm like, no, Don, leave it, man. Just leave it. I'll do it. I'll do it. Brian, I can tell you, that was the hardest flight in my career. The
Yeah.
hardest flight of my career. because my flight before this, I just crashed, balled it up.
Yeah.
And now I'm supposed to put on NVGs over water, flying with an E5 who was not very experienced and a co-pilot who had never done it before,
Right.
who'd been in the Navy since breakfast. And the only qualified people in that helo were myself and the hack, who was an O4. And that's it. He and I are the instructors. And I remember looking at my E5 and doing my crew only brief, and I'm like, listen, I am not getting out of my seat unless I absolutely have to. You're running the show. So you're sitting at the door. You can call the deck. You can do all the landings. And but for that, I'll get in the jump seat, in the hotel, right there by the hoist. I'll get in the
Hmm.
jump seat. I'm gonna stay strapped in. We can open the door. I'll lean out and I'll coach you through the first one. And depending on how you do on that one, you're gonna do the rest. And that's exactly what I did, man. I sat there strapped in. I didn't get out of my seat at all. I called the deck with him on the gunner's belt, calling it. And I'm like, all right, you did a good job. Just make sure you're clearing that tail when we come across the fantail, and then land them in the circle. That's it. I stayed right there, and on the next turn, pilot, can you slow to 70 so we can close the cabin door? We're gonna do some musical chairs back here, and they slowed, closed the cabin door 70 knots or 60 knots at the time. I'm saying Sierra numbers, but for Foxtrot Hotel 60 knots. So does 60 knots. Close the cabin door. Blah blah blah. We're good to go. And I remember going right back to the ASO seat, and I strapped back up in the ASO seat, and that's where I stayed for the rest of the flight
Hmm.
until we landed back on the deck, man. I was like, yeah, I'm not even. I'm hawking the nav page that has our altitude and airspeed, and I'm just looking out the window on NVGs, and that's what I did, man. That was my first flight back in the straps, and
Man.
on any other day, doing night DLQs over water and NVGs, no problem, right? But it was for me, it was like
I mean, it's
that was
still
traumatic,
it's
man.
up there as
Traumatic.
far as the scary things we do.
Yeah,
HS guys doing a HSL job there. Like
yeah,
it's
exactly, right. Stuff that we don't, that we're supposed to stay proficient at, but it was just to me, it was just principle, man. It was like, are you kidding me? Like, I'm gonna
Mhm.
go do night over water DOQs on NVGs for a pilot who's never landed on the back of a ship before, who's never done it. To me, it just seemed I was in shock again that was my first flight back on the strap since my
Yeah,
mishap.
it's poor planning. Do you think by shocking yourself back into it though, that kind of got you right back?
Yeah, I mean, what else? Yeah, absolutely. So it was kind of like a blessing, kind of in disguise, because I was like,
Mhm.
well, well, now I'm ready for anything. I mean, I went straight instead of crawl, walk, run, getting back in the straps. I just went straight to the run part, and everything else was just gravy. So after that, I was
Yeah,
like, yeah, all right, yeah, I'm good to go, man. Just throw me on the schedule. I just
yeah.
fell right back in the mix, because I
All
felt
right,
like,
let's jump back to the crash. I'm just curious, like because you're spinning so, so hard,
yeah,
the G-force is just insane. Nobody passed out. It all
no,
happened so quick. You guys
yeah,
hit, bounced.
right.
Um, when when did you know, like when was that moment when you knew you were alive?
It was after the first initial ground contact. I figured that's when I had to do that real quick, for lack of a better term, to do a real quick bite test. All right, yep, feel my feet. Yep, I'm still here. Yep, I'm still ticking. I'm good. And but it was multiple. But it was the one I was worried about the most, which I figured, hey, if I can survive that first one, because that was the hardest one, I can live through these subsequent ones, hoping this aircraft fuselage comes to a complete stop at some point. And it just happened so quick, man. But it was after that first one,
Hmm.
that first initial contact ground impact was the first time that I can recall saying I'm okay. I'm okay. And then it finally came. It was validated when we were at a complete stop, waiting for those RPMs to die down so that we can egress. That's when I knew that we made it for me. Anything and everything in between, man. I've had asked, kind of like with you and your experience, I've had people ask me stuff all the time. Hey, what were you thinking about? Hey, is it true that your life flashed before your eyes and you start thinking about X, Y, and Z? I'm like, man, for me, it might be different answer for everybody else, but for me, none of that. I didn't experience any of that. I
It
didn't
all happened too
experience,
fast.
I didn't think about family. I didn't think about my wife. I didn't think about my kids. I didn't think about anything. It happened so quick. It was just straight survival mode. That's all. It was just survival. I just have to get myself through this particular phase so that I can hopefully see my family again. But
Yeah.
there was none of that ever came like, oh, hey, I never stopped to evaluate, okay, this is the end. And I guess looking back on it is the reason why we're even here today is everything. And what you've mentioned many, many times in your book is we were prepared and trained for these types of things. We were trained for the worst. We were trained to get ourselves through these tough situations. And for me, it was just a survival thing, man. This is just again, this was just another time in my life, another speed bump I just needed to get through so I could hopefully see my family again. But replaying it all,
Yeah.
quitting, or thinking, oh, this is it. I'm not going to survive this. All getting ready to die together. None of that ever went through my head. It was just get through this. Let's
True.
survive it.
But so, like a lot of things from your childhood and beyond,
Yeah.
it was out of your control. So, even in this moment, you don't have a choice. You're
Right.
either going to live or die. You have zero control.
Right.
And within a brief, well, who knows, time stood still.
Yeah.
But in a quick moment, you had that first bounce. You went from, I'm, there's a good chance I'm going to die
Right.
to I'm alive.
Right.
So there is that moment. I was talking to Marcus Luttrell about like lone survivor, his story,
Right. Hmm.
and he asked me that same question. That's why I was just curious with you. And for me, on Everest, it was really when my Sherpa friend Pasong came out of nowhere and hugged me. I'd been 7 hours, descending this mountain, and yeah, 100% knew I was going. No one survives that.
Yeah.
And I was going to do everything I could to survive. So I had control over that. And as soon as I had that human contact, that's when I knew I was alive. That
Yeah.
was a very powerful moment. For Marcus, it was the same.
Right. Yeah.
When he had that human contact, he
Yeah.
knew.
No, for sure. Yeah. For me, it was maybe not so much the human contact because I wasn't necessarily by myself like both of you were in those two situations. I was still with my crew and I had them with me.
But even
It
hearing their
was,
voices,
yeah, it was just their voices, but there were some times where it was just silent, you know,
yeah,
and but I was still there with him. I wasn't alone like you guys, left to my own devices.
yeah.
But at the end of the day, uh, I still had to face and slay that dragon. And like I said, for me, my moment where I knew that I had made it was when it finally, after that first initial one, and then after the last one, when it finally I heard everything die down, and now we're getting out. That's when I realized, okay, I'm alive, man, and let's just get out of this thing, and let's just, hopefully it doesn't blow up on us, because that thought never came through my mind either, other than to my had my crewman, my gunner yelling at me, we're gonna blow up, we're gonna blow up, and
Yeah. Just like the movies.
yep, and but it didn't happen, and that's why, all right, well, we survived this, and we can survive the next phase too. We just got to get out,
Yeah, yeah. Break it
and
down into little survivable chunks.
yeah, that's it. Yep, exactly. Survivable chunks.
When did you first get to talk to your wife?
I was able to talk to her that day. In fact, it was part of. It happened at medical. So after I'd walked in and told them why I was there, and I got taken to the ground, and they went through all that initial triage and with me and X-rays and what have you, and I was at the waiting to get discharged, see a doctor, and get my meds, which was like I said, the Flexeril and vitamin M Motrin. They said you might want to call your wife or your loved ones,
Hmm.
and I said, yeah, it's probably a good call. And so they gave me a DSN line there at the hospital and to call. And I said you might want to get a hold of her before anything else gets a hold of her via the news or
Hmm.
anything else, just to put her mind at ease. And she had already heard about it,
Oh, wow.
but didn't know that it was me. She just knew that that we'd had an accident, and then I
Like it
told her it
was in
was
the
me.
news already?
Well, it wasn't in the news already, but it had filtered through channels.
Yeah, it was the same for me on Everest. It went through the like the Nepali grapevine, the Sherpa grapevine.
Right,
My
right.
wife knew what happened before I got to talk to her as
Yeah,
well.
and I can neither confirm nor deny, and I'm not. I'm just saying, you know how it goes, man. It's like those, loose lips sink ships kind of thing. It was
Hmm.
OPSEC. They had they had known the information had trickled through. The names were being withheld, but the family members, and I just say family as the entire squadron family members had already kind of known that there was an accident. They didn't know to what degree, and they didn't know who was involved, and so forth. And so she had already heard. I heard there was an accident. Yeah, that was me. And then that's when it got real with her at the time. And of course
Yeah.
she cried, and I'm like, but I'm here. I'm talking to you. We're good. Are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. And that's kind of how
Yeah.
that happened, man. Yeah.
So you weren't crying at this point?
Um, Brian, I'm
That's a
not even
major
sure.
adrenaline
Yeah, I was just pure
release.
adrenaline, brother. I cannot recall crying at all, to be honest with you. And I'm not saying that I did, or I'm not trying to sound tough. I just don't know if I ever
Jay,
did.
this is a safe place. You can let it
Yeah.
out now.
Yeah, no, I hear you, brother.
Don't
I hear
hold that
you.
in, brother.
I, yeah. I don't think I ever cried, man. I think really for me it was just more or less replaying it over and over again. Hey, had I not done this, or what if you would have done this, or hey, what if what would have happened over water? Would the outcomes have been the same? Would we all have made it out? The pilots were injured. They could have maybe not ever made it out. So I think traumatically that those I'm not going to say they haunt me, but I still think about those potential outcomes, which
Hmm.
you and I both know that didn't happen. But those are the ones I think about the most. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, especially in the military, it's like brush it under the table,
Hmm.
just get back out there, operate, do your
Yep.
thing,
Yep.
deal with it later in life when you're about to turn 52.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, that
No,
stuff
for
will
sure.
surface.
Yep. That's it, man.
Yep,
No.
body keeps score. But yeah, I
It's a
mean,
good
how are
book, by
you?
the way. That's a good book.
Yeah, no, it is.
Yeah. It's
How
good.
how are you doing mentally?
I mean, mentally, I feel fine,
I know this last year you had an injury,
Yeah.
MMA sparring, and just destroyed your ankle. I snapped my ACL for a second time like a few years back, and that
Yeah.
just totally grounded me. And it's crazy how something like that can just like it forces you
Yeah.
to, you can't do anything, you can't
Yeah.
function. Your purpose is just like on pause, and
Hmm.
at our age, reevaluate your life. So I
Yeah.
don't know if you had like similar situations or how you're doing.
No, of course, man. Of course. Uh, Not an easy answer, Brian. And I know you have your own experiences and you've spoken to a lot of people and interviewed a lot of people, and their answers might be the same. Maybe they're not. For me, I had a very, very, very hard time transitioning. And I just meant transitioning from the military to the civilian side, letting go, right? Letting go. It's just a stubborn mentality, still wanting to keep one foot in, not wanting to let go, hang up the fins, if you will. Um, Still have something to prove. We kind of talked about this offline before we
Hmm.
started the interview. Um, for me, it was the challenge of transitioning to civilian world, knowing, and I use the analogy all the time when I talk to civilians that do not understand military life. For one, they don't understand that camaraderie that we developed with men. But we were boys. We were babies, man. We were babies. We were boys. We were infants, man. We were young. We didn't know anything. We were just
Hmm.
high on life, man. We wanted to just be lifesavers and and go do some man stuff, right? So it was, I didn't take it all into perspective until that day came, those days, and then those days became years, man, months and years of trying to walk away and retire. And I did. And I retired 2015, October. And it was like, okay, all right, I'm good. I'll find something else to do. I'm still young. Uh, but I had a hard time transitioning into the civilian sectors because I felt like, and I've used this analogy before, which I stated a few minutes ago, is I just been institutionalized, man, you know,
Hmm.
and I use that term because I want people that I'm talking to, mainly civilians, to understand what I'm saying. So I'm trying to give them something that they can understand. Like institutionalized, I mean like being being a felon, being behind bars. Exactly.
Yep.
It's
Accurate.
yes, yes, because if that's all you know, then you've been in the pen in you've been in the pen locked up in the institution in the system for your penance or your 20 years, whatever, how many years, and you were a kid when you went in, and now you're a grown man, and they're sending you out to the real world. There you go, man. Thanks for playing. We enjoyed it. Have fun. And to me, it was everything. It was that, and I'm like, man, I don't know what's going on out here. I don't, and and then it was that on top of, many times being told, hey, the Navy's gonna survive without you. You're not
Mhm.
that important. You think, it's like if you think the Navy will not move on past you and forget you after a few months, you're sadly mistaken. You're not that important. We're all replaceable. And I
Yeah.
wanted to sit here and believe that that's not true. Not that the Navy couldn't live without me. I just felt like, hey, I invested all my life, my young life, you know, to be the swimmer that I was, to be the leader that I was, leading young sailors and young swimmers and teaching them what I know and passing on knowledge and building those teams and being in the crap, if you will, and doing it all to one day leaving and passing the torch off. That was tough, man. That was tough. And so I had a hard time with that, really hard time. And I would probably honestly say that I've never really completely transitioned. I might have by proxy, by default, just over time, because it's not who I am anymore. But I still fall back on all that training, all those years, all because that's all I know. So I've wanted to maintain and stay in a field and do something that I feel comfortable with, and so that's why I still associated myself with these men with Trident, the company, the security company that I work for, is
Mhm.
because we're all like-minded dudes. We're all
Yeah.
like-minded men. Yeah, you might have been a Green Beret. Yeah, you might have been a SEAL. Or yeah, you might have been a MARSOC guy. Or you might have been an Air Force PJ, or whomever the case may be. We're all like-minded. We all knew from which we speak. We're all like-minded. We all thought the same, and it was comfortable. And that's what I was searching for in life, man. I just needed to just be comfortable. I needed to be in my element. Need to be around warriors that are like me, like-minded, and not transition into the civilian sector and have to learn new things and deal with people that don't understand what you do, and they definitely don't understand how we talk because we use too many acronyms, right?
Mhm.
And and we're all problem solvers. So we're like, yeah, 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 okay, just how can we fix it? I'm like, well, that's not your job. What do you mean it's not your job? Because the Navy taught us find a way to get it done, right?
Yeah.
Find a way to get it done. You're not going to stop at obstacles. Just because you reach an obstacle, find a way to negotiate the obstacle. Get through it. And if you can't get through it, the last resort is knock the damn thing over and go right through it. And that's kind of how we were taught. So it's like civilians just don't understand that, man. Everyone stays in their rice bowl. Hey, that's not your job. That's the IT's guy. That's logistics people. We're like, yeah, no, we'll get it done. And so I had a hard time with that. And until someone, uh, uh, a good buddy of mine, uh, Sonny Saletti, he retired from Red Team out of DevGuru Team 6, and he handed me, he goes, Jay, you need to read this book. And he goes, it's a short read, man, read it. It's called Tribe. And I'm looking at my bookcase right here because I see it. It's called Tribe. And I don't know if you've ever read it before. It's a short
Have
read.
not.
It's called Tribe. And it puts things in perspective. It's written by a non-military guy, but he was fascinated by military people, and because he would notice that his experience with military people were all saying kind of the same thing, and it's that lack of. So basically, in a nutshell, the book is all about I felt lack of purpose. I lost my purpose. I was waking up every single day for 23 years in the military. I knew what I was doing for that day. I had structure. I knew the missions. It was you had something to wake up and do every single day. And when I left
Yeah.
that life behind me, it was now what? You know what I'm saying? Now what? And like time slowed down, and these civilians just don't understand that because we move so fast and so quick. And would negotiate obstacles and problems and just get stuff done. Had that mentality. Okay, we can't get it done. Find a way to get it done. Find a way. I know you remember that too. And failure's not an option. And so there was that. And then so I had a hard time with that. And of course, I'm here today talking to you. So I managed to get through it. But you're like, we keep saying some stuff like, "Hey, were you're like, Jay, when did you realize it? When you were 52?" Yeah, man, more or less. Because this ankle injury, blowing it out completely, really did, like you said, put things in perspective for me. Because I'm like, all
Yeah.
right, I had to have a lot of inner soliloquy, man, a lot of inner dialogue. I'm like, all right, it's time. It's time for you to hang it up. You have nothing to prove to yourself, to your wife, to your friends, anyone. You've just be grateful that God has kept you alive. He's not done with you, clearly. And so take those blessings in. It's not your timing, it's his timing. It's not your will, it's his will. And so, I had to kind of really evaluate things and put my faith, look at my faith in a different perspective, take everything in, no regrets, happy that I'm here, happy with what I have, what I'm blessed with, and take all that knowledge, experience, but more importantly, my brothers, yourself included, and grab hold of those things. Grab hold of your kids, your wife, your family, your close friends, you and our little small circle of people, and that's who you hang on to, man. And everything else is just gravy. And that's kind of where I'm at in life, man. Mentally, I think the older we get, and speaking for me specifically, I've put my life into perspective a lot of times, and I say this all the time, like I don't know why I'm still here.
Yeah.
I do not know why I'm still here. I do not know why God has spared me so many times. And my helicopter crashes are just
Yeah. No.
two times, Brian. Lord knows, and yourself included, I can't tell you how many times close calls I've been in
Mhm.
aviation, close calls riding my motorcycle, whatever, just in everything in life,
Yeah.
why am I still here? We got good guys that were good quality men, way better men than I ever was, that leave this earth or are called way before their time.
Yeah.
And why am I still here?
That's survivor's guilt.
Yeah. And I'm like, why am I still here? Like, I don't deserve to be here. If anyone deserved to be here, it's whomever, right? That they were good people,
Hmm.
and I think that made it brought me closer to my faith.
Yeah.
I mean, I grew up in a Catholic family, and being Catholic, and that's a long story. We can probably talk about that another time too. But I would just say my faith. I tried to stay kind of like in the vein of of your question is, how are you doing mentally, Jay? And I'm like, well, it's a long answer, Brian, because even I did the aggressive therapy, psychotherapist, right? Seeing my psychotherapist regularly, trying to talk myself through and get me through this point, these rough times, patches of my life, and talk to this social worker, this therapist, uh, I sought out some mentors that, one or two of which were my spiritual mentors, one of which was my pastor, senior pastor. He took me through my discipleship at my early age when I was doing a discipleship at his church. He was my mentor, and then a good buddy of mine too. He was the Dustin Rosner. He was part of the church there as well, and he ran the high school ministry there, and he was a good spiritual advisor and helper to me as well during those times. But my point to the question is, I had the psychotherapist, and I'm like, yeah, you need aggressive therapy, and I'm like, all right, well, let's do it, and I'm seeing my therapist 3 times a week, and I'm seeing another therapist on top of that, and I reached out to my spiritual advisors, and they're trying to help me from a distance because they're out of California, and what have you. And I did it all, and I said, you know what? I can do this by myself. I don't know why I said that, Brian, but I said I can do this by myself. I don't need
That's
that.
what we do.
I don't need that. So I stopped it all. I stopped. I didn't say I fired my psychotherapist. I just like I just stopped going. I stopped making the appointments, and I just stopped going. And I was like, I'm
Yeah.
gonna do this by myself. And I'm like, well, looking back on that, I'm like, well, how many times have I said I can do this life on my own anyway. I'm in control here. I'm in control of my own life. I got it. You know, again, probably a lot of things that guys like us experience. I got this. I haven't been killed yet. I managed to make it through X, Y, and Z this many years. I'm still here, tough as nails. I got it, and it took, but I realized, no, that's the same stubborn mentality that you had before. It takes a real man to say that he wasn't right or he needs help. So I'm not going to say I did it by myself, but I went head first into my Bible, back to my Bible,
Yeah.
and I started back from the basics. And I went
That's-
back to my Bible and back to my spiritual roots, things that I've been taught from my spiritual advisor that I was telling you about, and that's where I started. Just try to stay in the Word, reconnect, and put things in perspective. And that was fairly recent too, Brian. I would say that was probably when I was in the thick of it and some really going through some really, really tough times, walked through some fire, slaying some dragons, having some really, really impure thoughts. It was nothing more than just spiritual warfare. And anybody who's spiritual understands that that's a real thing. People that don't understand spiritual warfare think that we're just talking out of our ass, and then it's nothing. It's just fictitious stuff that we make up. No, it's not. It's true. There's spiritual warfare that goes on every single day. And especially if you have a target on your back as a Christian, you're a target. And so I had a lot of things going on, man. I'd be a liar if I said that I didn't have thoughts of just ending it, and myself, it'd be a lot easier. My kids would be a lot better off without me. Hell, I'm worth more money dead than I am alive. And,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I've
Same
heard a
thing.
lot, I've heard a lot of people, X, Y,
All
and Z,
lies.
just, you know what I'm saying? And so, it took me to find rock bottom, and when
Mhm.
I'm weak, the Lord is strong, and it's like, his love is sufficient, right? His grace is sufficient. That's kind of how that's helped me. So when you ask, how are you doing mentally, Jay? That's a long answer, brother, to your question. But the older I've gotten, the less stubborn I've gotten, and I've admitted to myself and truly believe that I'm only here for a reason, and God's not done with me yet, and that's just it. And so just
Amen.
wake up each day with a purpose, do the best I can. His will, not mine. His timing, not mine. This too shall pass, and hopefully I give him all the glory for each and every day. Give me the strength to recognize the doors that you open up for me. Give me the courage to walk away from the ones that you close, and just live my life like that, and it's funny, man, because yesterday we went to a play that I'd never seen before. My wife had bought us tickets, and it's called The Thorn. Are you familiar with that?
I'm not.
It's a great play, man. It was awesome. But it's a story of essentially the Passion of the Christ, essentially. But it's a play. It's just called The Thorn. The Thorn.
Okay. Yeah.
And it is amazing, Brian. It was amazing. I would say it was life-changing for someone who didn't know God or didn't
Yeah.
know Jesus as their Lord and Savior. It could be very life-changing, man. But having it being fresh, I just saw it last night, and here
Mm.
I am talking to you. It was like, all right, yeah, this is why I'm still here. This is
Yeah.
why I'm still here. This is what I'm supposed to do, and this is my life now. And like all that was just training to get me to where I am now. And let's just move on to that next chapter in my life. And the way I see it right now, it's just connecting with guys like you, my brothers, and trying to just be the best man, best husband I can be, best father, and and just enjoy the rest of my life, man. And that's kind of where I'm at, dude. So I couldn't be happier. I'm happily married. Um, I feel like I'm in a good place with my walk, my spiritual walk, and yeah, I'm just blessed, man. I'm blessed to be here. I'm blessed to
Yeah,
be
I'm
talking to you,
blessed to
and
have you.
yeah, man, for
And
sure.
I feel like so many of us come from these broken families and traumatic and abusive and just, every flavor of crap.
Right.
And then we, like you said, we're boys, we're girls, we're young, and then we have this camaraderie. We get through this together, we're bonding together. And
Hmm.
then one day that's ripped off, and now we have to figure it out.
Yeah.
But that identity that we put into that job was everything. And it's
Sure.
a matter of finding that, like, the path, the journey that you're on right now,
Yeah.
that identity in Christ.
Hmm.
And it's not about anything that's occurred to you or that you've done in the past,
Hmm.
not a job that you have. I was listening to Jay Shetty, and he had a great question, and I think it's something we should all ask ourselves because it helps us really paint a picture of who we are as humans. And
Hmm.
it's when all titles are stripped away, how would you describe yourself in just a few words?
Hmm.
It's almost impossible for us to describe ourselves without pinning it to a job or a performance or
Right.
an accomplishment. But when you look back at, who you truly are, it's very therapeutic, but also a big eye opener. And like Rick Warren's book, Purpose Driven Life,
Yep. I've read
is
it.
is great because it's your purpose in Christ. And for
Right.
those that aren't Christ followers, that sucks.
Yep.
Um,
Right. Yeah. No,
but
you're
for
right.
those of us that are, it's
Yep.
you find your purpose, your identity in Christ, and it at least alleviates us from all this other clutter that's coming in and clouding our judgment, our perspective, creating depression and these thoughts that are just intrusive that a lot of times are voices put into our head at a very young age. And we've done
Hmm.
everything we can to break that cycle, have a 180 on it. But again, we've essentially pinned that pendulum too far to a side, and now our
Yeah.
identity is in that. So now it's
Right.
bringing it back and taking back control of that.
Yeah. No, good stuff, man, for sure. For sure. But no, man, I've enjoyed it, dude. It is therapeutic talking about it because I don't talk about it every day. In fact, I don't really talk about it at all, truthfully.
Huh? You got my number. I'll just,
Yeah, I know. I know. I
I got my
know.
own crap. I'll talk to you about it.
Yeah, I know, brother. No, but it was awesome, man. I really appreciate it, and I hope you can do something with it. Like I said, humbled enough that you even asked. You know that I'm like I don't know what Brian sees in me, but hey, whatever he sees something in me, I guess I'll let him interview me. I guess you know it's like I don't feel like I'm even
Dude,
qualified to be on your webcast, buddy.
you
Honestly,
are
that's just me just me
overqualified.
personally. You know, is I was like, yeah, I'm just humbled. I'm humbled to say I was part of it with you and our group and our crew and just blessed to have done what we talked about together and
Yeah.
as individuals and everything else. And it was a good time in life, man. But I'm blessed and definitely humbled here to be with you, man, for sure. And knowing the guys that you've already spoken to before me is like, man, I don't even know how I can follow those guys. Like, it's like, that's again, that was just more of my own doing. Like, I don't even. There's no way I can.
Yeah, it's funny how we all kind of have that imposter syndrome because we get
Yeah,
in a game of comparison.
right.
Like you are an amazing individual. I looked up to you when we were going through schools. You seemed so put together, right? Little did I
Yeah.
know how unput together you were, but you
Oh,
put on
thank you.
that mask.
Yeah.
And like even Derek, he was same age. His brother
Yep.
just had a little more experience, so then just kind of like leaned in on that.
Yep.
We I guess we take what we can at that time, even when you take a step back. It's pretty silly, but it's what we need, and it's just part of that journey that we're all on.
Yeah.
And you're very much worthy and very much looked well upon in the community. Man, when I did, I think I posted like a quote, when you did an endorsement for the book, and like
Yep.
had like more hits than anything on socials. Like everyone's like, "Oh, I love that dude." And
Yeah. Yeah.
my
Oh,
question for you before we leave here
yes, sir.
is, what do you use some sort of product for your face? I mean, you look like you're a contrast of like 1,000. You look so
No,
good
man.
looking, and
No,
I look
dude.
all withered away here.
I just
Tell
call
us
it
the secret.
what was I don't know why I don't know why my brain just went there, but when you asked that question, of course I'm laughing and jokingly, but there was some there was a big to do in the political news last few months of, and I can't remember what her name was. But it was some model or some actress or whatever. She wears some pair of jeans and they have a commercial about her and it just blew up, man. It just blew up. All she was doing is promoting a pair of jeans and then it just
Uh-huh.
blew up out of control, right? But the ad was all she said was just good jeans. And I'm like, when you ask me that, like, hey, what are you doing, man? I'm not doing anything, brother. I'm just I'm doing what I've always done, and that's, and that's just, man, I don't, I just go to the
Jeez.
gym, and that's really the answer. And I don't know if that's answers the question, but I just say just good genes and
Yeah, no,
whatever
you
her
look
name
like you
was.
have a healthy lifestyle. I'm going to
I
do a
just thank my parents
hashtag
for it,
just good
man. I guess.
genes.
Yeah, I thank my parents for it. I mean, look at this, brother. I mean, the picture that I was showing my wife of us the other day at aircrew school, I had a flat top, man. I had a head full of hair, flat top.
That's
She's
right.
like, where are you? And I'm like, she goes, is that you right there? I'm like, yeah. Yeah, I had some white walls that were shaved on the side, and I had a flat top. I had a lot of hair, and I showed her a picture when I was the acting CMC at the helicopter wing Pacific Fleet right before I retired. I was in my blues and had my little little command senior chief cookie on there, whatever, Bob. And it was one of those formal pictures. She's like, "Oh my God, I don't even recognize you. You have no hair now. You have a beard. You look so young." And I'm like, "Yeah, those just different times, man." So I don't know, brother. I just
Well,
try
you look
to.
great.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. You look good too. I have a little bit more gray, no hair, but still the same old guy. And
Jay, I mean, thank you for your vulnerability. Thank you for your stories, your service, just for who you are. You're sharing your path of faith. That's huge. I know a lot of people get a lot out of this episode. I just appreciate you and love you as a
appreciate you, too,
friend.
Brian.
Love you as a brother.
Yeah, absolutely, man. All day long, brother. As iron sharpens iron, right? So one man shall sharpen the countenance of another. So I appreciate it, man. I talk about you all the time, man. Probably more about you than you would ever talk about me. I'm like,
I don't
this
know
stud
about
right
that.
here. I'm like, this stud right here. You're like, that guy? I'm like, yeah, that
Yeah, he
guy.
ain't all that.
And so he climbed Everest and he came down by himself blinded. I'm like, whoa. I'm like, yeah, dude, like that he's a
It's all
stud,
part of the
and he's
journey.
like, yeah, dude, it's awesome, man. I talk about you all the time, brother, but it was humbled to be in your company, man, and I appreciate the opportunity that you gave me today to come on Calm in the Chaos, and I can't echo enough everything that you and I both know to be true. I mean, I know that's the reason why you're doing it. Is like, hey, what causes men and or women to just keep going in those times when you're faced with those struggles, and it's just who you are inside, man. It's just that I just say in simplest terms, I just say it's just that warrior spirit.
Yeah,
I think that's what it all comes down to. It's just that warrior spirit. I will not quit and I will not die today.
yeah.
Um, and that's all I can think of, man. In short, so I really appreciate it, man. Because all those skills that we did learn, although we may or may not have recognized the true meaning behind the method to their madness as our instructors at the time, but it was all for good reason. And what we did with it in the execution phase of our life is still applicable today in everything we do. So I have a lot of um respect for the military, the government, the Navy, and of course my community. But more importantly, my brothers like yourself, dude. So it was a good run. It was a good ride. I'd do it all over again, brother. I would in a
Same.
second.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And for
Thank you,
everybody
brother.
else, we'll see
Yes,
you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Calm in the Chaos podcast. Please subscribe to be notified of future episodes. And if you enjoyed what you just heard, please leave a 5-star review on whatever platform you listen to podcasts. Until next time, get out there and make a difference so others may live.